Well, hello everybody, and welcome to the 298th edition of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse Podcast. I'm your host, Steve Wellings, and joining me on the call this evening, we have Adam Smido-Smith, Ozzy Smith, Gabe Lewis, and also Andy Patterson. Not a great deal of action over the weekend. There were a few bits and pieces of interest. Obviously, we'll be starting with the World Boxing Super Series. Those of you viewing on YouTube or IFL or whoever was showing it will have been pleased to see a nice crisp stream. No buffering, worked pretty well for me. Also, the guru, Tommy Allen, you might not be able to hear him on the pod, but you can see him on the telly these days. Big time Charlie that he was. He was over on the World Boxing Super Series link. Yeah, a few bits and pieces of interest on this one, actually. Ryan Burnett, obviously, we're going to come to that first. Josh Taylor, fantastic performance. Victor Postol, won on points, didn't actually see that one. Paul Butler, etc. Let's start off, shall we, Gabe? Not with Josh Taylor, but with Nonito Donaire against Ryan Burnett. Everything was going pretty well for Burnett early doors. Seemed to me to win the first couple of rounds. I gave him them. Then I gave Donaire the third round. And the commentators seemed to miss this, Gabe. But at the end of the third round, Burnett seemed in distress in his corner. You could hear him saying something to Adam Booth. And Adam Booth, his face just dropped as if he'd heard the news of a death or something. I thought, what's going on? I can't quite make it out. The commentary team didn't really pick it up at all. But then in the fourth round, it became obvious, Gabe. Alas, it was a bit like Nicky Cook, I think, against Alex Arthur, but all those years ago. Burnett threw a right hand, his hip, his back, whatever it was, seemed to just go right beneath him, and he took a count, and he was hobbling around with his glove on his back, and the fight, for all intents and purposes, was pretty much over at that point. But, Gabe, you don't want to give Nonito Donaire, the veteran that he is, moving down to bantamweight, too much credit, do you? Please tell me what happened. What you're thinking about, Gabe?
Never. I'll never give him credit, ever. You'll never get me to say it. His Fighter of the Year run was bullshit. He had some quality wins, but he's vastly overrated. I've said he's overrated for years, and now that he's not quite as quick, and when he moved up and his power didn't carry, nothing. Bum shit. Nothing at all. So, yeah, that's not necessarily entirely true. I mean, you got to give the guy some credit for at least making it as far as he did. But I don't think he's going to win the tournament. I think it's going to be glorious if he makes it to the final and Naoya Inoue blasts him out, because that's what I think is going to happen if he even makes it to the final. There one more. Who does he fight next?
Zolani Tete, who beat Miguel Aloyan a couple of weeks ago.
Excellent. So I don't even think he's going to get through that fight. I think he's going to get outboxed and beaten up badly. And if he does surprisingly land something big enough to win that fight, then he'll get destroyed by Inoue. So his time is over. It's been over for a while. He was near the end of it whenever he was going on that Fighter of the Year run. He didn't have a whole lot left in the gas tank past that point. He went up too far in weight, I think. I think that was a problem for him. And then he had Robert Garcia. I think that was a terrible trainer choice for him because he just relied on his raw athleticism and power, and he never really got real sound fundamentals to the point where he could pick himself into any fight, if things weren't going his way. So, like I said, I've always felt he's a bit overrated, but then again, I'm a bitter Darchinian fan, so that goes a lot to explain exactly why that is.
Gabe, just to pick you up, you said his Fight of the Year run was overrated. Are you talking about 2012?
Yeah.
Which was 6 years ago, and he hadn't had much left in the tank after that. He's been going for 6 years at a pretty high level.
Well, explain it. Explain what you think is a high level, because I haven't seen him do anything that I would consider to be extraordinary.
Well, he lost to Rigondo. He knocked out Darchinian in the rematch. He then beat Verdejo.
Let's go piece by piece. We'll dissect it. He got outclassed and soundly by Rigondo. He almost lost to an old Vic and got bailed out by his power with another left hook.
That's true.
Vic was if you look at that fight, that was nothing more than getting a bailout, because he was getting his ass whipped around the ring. And it was either Rigondeaux that busted his eye or Vic busted his eye, but he had a busted orbital like Margarito. Probably, I don't know if it wasn't visibly as bad in any of those fights.
I think it was Rigo.
I think it was too, but maybe they just didn't catch it because it wasn't too bad. But either way, old Vic Darchinian, gave him a fight of the evening there. And I think, aside from the very end of that fight, outclassed him and was whipping the shit out of him. I think it was Darchinyan was up by 4 or 5 points on 2 cards. I think one card maybe a point or so. One card was kind of shit, but he was getting outclassed and outworked, out everything in that fight. So carry on.
Okay, well, I'm not going to go through okay, I concede your Verdejo was bad and Walters was bad. But if you're going recently, though...
No,
I haven't got time to go... No, listen. I haven't got time to go through all of them. 2016, right, Jesse Magdaleno, 23-0, gave him a good fight. 2018, Carl Frampton. This is an older Donaire who's constantly doing 365 testing. Went with Frampton and gave him a decent argument, considering he's past the best. You're talking the lower weights here. Someone who's been from flyweight, still competing.
You could say that, I guess.
I'm saying it.
And how far he's come up, but I don't.
I'm loving this, mate. I'm loving this,
and I'm not impressed by any of it. And that Magdaleno fight wasn't all that close. It wasn't a wide card type fight, but it wasn't exactly what I would consider to be close either. So, I think the Carl Frampton fight was maybe the best one that he's had in some time. He fought an old Jorge Arce, Nishioka, whatever you want to say about that one. We all know that the split decision in Texas against Vasquez Jr., Wilfredo Vasquez, was garbage during his Fighter of the Year run. So
you notice one of the judges who gave it 117-110 that night, Gabe, I have it up on BoxRec, was a certain Levi Martinez and a certain Don Trella.
Trella scored it for Vasquez?
No, he scored it for him and Martinez scored it 117-110 for Donaire.
No,
Garcia.
I was about to say Don is killing me. No, Don had the correct scorecard there. He beat the shit out of Vasquez. There was nothing wrong with Don's 117 card.
Broke his hand against Vasquez.
Martinez in his 117 card. That guy's a shithead. I don't know. I feel like you've made my point for me. I'm not going to elaborate any further. No credit from me. And he lost to a guy that threw his back out. So he gets to advance, whatever. I'm going to get to live long enough to see a glorious disaster and watch him getting beat again like he got beaten by Nicholas Walters.
Okay. I'm taking that as a verbal apology. I think I won that round. Let's move on.
I love that. There's no recourse. It's just like, hey, let's move on.
No, it was good. I wasn't expecting that, to be honest. But fair play to Gabe. He gave a good argument. He came out second best, but it wasn't by much. So fair play to him. He had a good go. Right, Ozzy. Let's continue along the theme here. We're talking to Burnett, aren't we, Donaire? So we might as well continue. Burnett badly injured. He's not going to face Tete. He's not going to face Inoue. I suppose that's what he's been carried out on the stretcher. He might not have been too upset, to be honest.
No, a real shame, because I thought the fight started off reasonably well. I thought Burnett looked big, strong. I thought he showed impressive speed in the ring. And then I'm sure it was the round before, Burnett whispered something in the corner about struggling to be able to throw a right hand.
He did, yeah.
And then obviously the round after, he just collapsed in the ring. Innocuous, he's just thrown a shot and it's gone. And no, I know I mentioned it in the chat a couple of weeks ago that there was talk that Burnett and Donaire were both pulling out the fight. It didn't happen. However, I always think there's some substance to things, and it does make you wonder now whether Donaire was nursing, maybe a bit of a back injury prior to the fight, and then came into it, because, to get a slip disc just from throwing a shot, it's very, very innocuous. It can happen. So unfortunate, and we obviously don't want that to be career threatening to Ryan Burnett, because whilst his style isn't for everybody, he's clearly a talent, and I think there's a potential. He's big at the weight, so it potentially could go and win a world title up at super bantamweight as well. That same for Donaire. He's advanced into the semi-final when, I think, being brutally honest, nobody really gave him a chance. Unfortunate circumstances. And now he's landed himself another big payday. and this is going to be against Zolani Tete, but I can't see him causing too many problems for Tete. But I was impressed with Donaire. I thought he looked good at the weight, all things considering. I think, 6 years since he last made the bantamweight limit. I think we all thought it was going to be a struggle for him, and he may look like a bit of a corpse on the scales, but he looked okay. He landed some shots on Burnett, and we know Donaire does carry power. But Burnett took them quite well, actually.
I thought in the second round he landed a body shot that Burnett visibly felt in his face.
Was it towards the end of the second round?
Yes, Burnett was on the ropes, and to his credit, he came back and fired back for the last 30 seconds, but you could tell he felt that.
Yeah, definitely. And I think he's always going to carry power, Donaire, and it was a wonder at first, if he drains himself too much, the weight is too much, that he might lose a bit of his pop, but clearly not. Thought Burnett did well, like riding the shots, taking a bit out of them as well. I don't think he took anything full on, bar probably that body shot and a couple of others. And it's probably the first real upset, obviously due to circumstances, in the World Boxing Super Series tournament as a whole as well. Whilst the tournaments have been great, we've not seen any upsets until last night, and obviously that was due to injury. So obviously wish Ryan Burnett a speedy recovery. He looked clearly in pain leaving the ring in a stretcher, and it's not something you want to see. As for Donaire, the story goes on, and I think they're going to announce the fight in a couple of weeks against Tete, and they were talking about all sorts of venues, so we'll just wait and see.
Andy, I know you're obviously there. You saw Burnett in action. Tell us about that. Also, before you go into that, Andy, we've had a question coming from Ryan Deal. Seeing as we were talking about Rigo, Donaire, and that, I thought I'll throw this into you first before you tell us about Burnett. Ryan says, Patreon subscriber Ryan Deal, by the way. Thank you, Ryan. How would you see an Inoue versus Rigo fight going at 118? Really hoped that Rigo would enter the World Boxing Super Series. Not sure why he didn't, says Ryan. So say if Rigo was in instead of Tete or whatever, Andy, and he went in right now against Inoue at 118, any value in that fight?
Right now, this version of Rigo, probably not. Christ knows what he's doing, what he's up to. You would probably need to see Inoue, and that's just purely because he is active. He is active as sorts. He's icing his opponents in like 30 seconds or whatever and that. But no, it's I would need to go Inoue. I just think he would be kind of too powerful, too big, and probably too active as well. Unless Rigo can dance around about him, which, to be honest, you could probably see it, but I just don't think he could do it for 12 rounds. I think he would end up, taking shots, and plus his mistakes been lost after that quit against Lomachenko. So there is a blueprint out there to beat him, so to speak. As for Burnett, I was absolutely shocked. I actually got told during the week that Donaire was like 2 pounds off the weight, like maybe three or 4 days before the weigh-in, which was actually incredible. So as I say, obviously, when Burnett threw the right hand, I watched the fight when I got back home last night, and you can see, as you guys say, Adam Booth was instantly concerned. He's then quietly speaking in Burnett's ear and stuff. So obviously, kind of like just maybe trying to box this way, maybe kind of stay on the back foot. But I wouldn't say he was moving freely, but you can see him. He was moving about the ring and stuff, even when he threw the right hand. If it is a back problem, it looks more like a hip issue, actually, just by the way he actually kind of grabbed onto it. And I just wonder, maybe like the pains probably just kind of hit him at one point. This is the reason why they've had to kind of take him out. Because I noticed he was actually on the gas in there and that as well, as he was getting shipped out of there. So it's potential hip injury. If it is a back problem, then it would probably call for that as well. If it's a prolapse disc or something like that. I've had issues with my lower back for 10, 12 years, and it's nothing structural. It's kind of more kind of like deep in the kind of center core and stuff. So pulling muscles and hamstrings, that it's just constantly been a problem. And if I've got to do anything like workouts and stuff, I've got to kind of like go stretching for an hour and that. So full sympathy to kind of Ryan Burnett, because if he has got kind of like muscle problems where he's actually tight, the last thing you need, especially if you try to like throw punches and that, you want a kind of solid base. If you're going to kind of like swivel your hips and follow through with a right hand, you can't be tight around about the kind of like lower lumbar, kind of lower half of your body region and stuff. So if it is that, it is a concern. But if it's to me, from my vantage point, I thought it was kind of more like a hip injury. As for Donaire, he's picked up another world title of sorts. I don't think he was any way, shape or form disgracing the fight or anything like that. Okay, he is removed from his prime. Everybody knows this, but I thought he was in that fight all the way, even before he kind of had that stoppage. So I don't know what the scorecards were at the time, but I thought it was pretty easy peasy. And this just go back to kind of Gabe's point on Donaire and stuff like that. I would need to say like the Donaire for like 2012. Probably around about that time, 2011, 2012 was probably like pound for pound, absolutely one of the best fighters in the world. I mean, the Montiel knockout was incredible. Narvaez, it was a poor performance of sorts, but at the end of the day, it was Narvaez wasn't willing to engage. He broke his hand against Vasquez. Matabula, I'm sure he was a big, tall, rangy fighter and stuff. So to actually kind of like almost like have a shutout across all three scorecards was actually quite good. And then the Nishioka fight. Nishioka was actually like one of the top, or it was a long-standing super bantamweight champion class.
Hadn't he beaten Rendell Monroe at one point?
Yep, it had. I remember that fight being shown on delay on Sky on Sunday.
Right,
actually.
Yep.
Nishioka was, as I said, he was a long-standing champ, but he's been in a lot of good fights and stuff like that, especially in Japan. But I remember Donaire landed a picture-perfect, full extended right hand on Nishioka, knocked him out. It was a picture shot. I think he maybe dropped him twice in that fight. Jorge Arce, we all know, was it was back in the day, was value for money. You could say that he was maybe slightly washed at that point, probably as washed at that point, and then he goes into Rigo, which there's no disgrace. He kept pushing the fight. We saw Canelo quit mentally against Floyd when he had no answers. Donaire had no answers for Rigo, but he didn't quit mentally. He kept trying to fight.
He certainly did. He even dropped him at one point. A couple of things.
That's true. That's true. I forgot about that.
He did, didn't he? You were mentioning there Narvaez. Yeah, Narvaez was never one to engage. We saw that against Tete recently, although this is like a 15 years or whatever, 10 years on version of Narvaez. And also Andy mentioned the names there. Fernando Montiel was an excellent fighter back in his day, and whenever Nonito Donaire beat him, he was still an excellent fighter. So that's superb. Before we go on to Smido, I believe Gabe wants right of reply. Go ahead, Gabriel.
Yeah, I'm not going to argue or bash anyone this time. But I think why I get so agitated about the situation, if you can't tell, I just feel like everybody overrated the guy massively. Yeah, he had a good run, a great run at that time compared to some of the stuff other people were doing, some of the other top names in the sport. But everybody wanted to rank him pound for pound this and one of the greatest fighters. That, and it just, I mean, I felt like everybody got blinded by HBO putting these fights on that were stylistically perfect matchups for the guy, and so that's why I continually push back against the subject. And then, like I said, too, huge Darchinian fan, so that whenever he got chinned, really, that drove me crazy. But whenever you look back at it, again, I did mention, I think he did have a good run, a really solid, really, really good run. I stopped short of saying a great run. But it's one of those scenarios where I think he just got massively overrated, and I got sick of hearing about the guy. So I pushed back. Like Andy said, some of those guys are names, and they're names that you recognize, and they're names that you like. And but some of them were a little bit past their best. And so I think he got a lot of credit for doing not as much maybe as I felt like he could have done at the time.
No problem, Gabe. Okay, let's round off Burnett with you. Smido, what did you make of the performance up until the stoppage? Burnett seemed to be doing okay, cruising on through, just wasn't to be.
Yeah, pretty much agree, Steve. We didn't really get long enough to really analyse it. And I was gutted that I missed the slight concern / panic in the corner after round 3 that you and Ozzy noticed, because I think there was definitely a betting opportunity there, but I missed out. Yeah, I mean he got up, didn't he? But he was very, very, very stiff. I think he threw a right hand and it fell short, twisted his back, body, hip, whatever it may be, and then yeah, it was kind of freakish. Like, you're watching it. It's been a reasonably long night of boxing. And then yeah, something just happens out of the blue like that. But yeah, I think it was warming up nicely. I mean, we can argue about Donaire. I think he had a fantastic run when, with that Montiel knockout, he was absolutely smashing people. And I think to be fair to Hater, it was at a time when, correct me if I'm wrong, the likes of Mayweather was in semi-retirement. So I think guys like Donaire, who were active and knocking people out, were getting more thrust into the limelight, if you like, to be fair. But yeah, I mean, Donaire wasn't... I mean, Steve, how bad do you think Donaire was against Frampton? I don't think he was terrible.
No, I gave him a couple of rounds. What I'm saying is he was competitive at this stage of his career. I'm not saying he's going to go out there and win a load of rounds. I'm not expecting to beat these guys. But the fact that he's at this advanced stage, bloated up in weight, he's been going for so long, and he's still giving performances where he can win rounds off the likes of Frampton. He can win rounds off the likes of Burnett. He can push the likes of Magdaleno reasonably close throughout the fight. It's not a poor performance in my eyes.
Yeah, I definitely agree. He's 35 years old. Like you say, he's been operating at a higher level. I mean, he should have never gone up. That Walters was a horrible mistake in terms of weight. But yeah, first time he's made bantamweight since the Montiel fight. And there was rumours that he was struggling at the weight. But as Andy alluded to, 2 pounds off, early in the week of the fight. I think that's more than reasonable for a guy at the age of 35. So he'll go on. Just on Tete, I was talking to my mate last night. He'll know who he is. And there's a feeling really that the Tete that knocked that bloke out with the first punch, has been a bit more reluctant to throw in his last couple of fights since then. Obviously, he's moving up in levels, Tete, and I was always a big fan of him. But we'll see. It'll be. I still think, and as for reasons discussed, Steve, it will be. I think that'll be an intriguing fight. I think we'll find out how good Tete is that night.
Yeah, Rob Kelly is on with us. Always good to have Rob. I always said that I felt Burnett would beat Tete. I guess we'll never know, Rob.
Yeah, I don't know about that one, Steve. Tete has he's kind of like Redondo light in many ways, isn't he? Like he can go in and bore you to death, but still be hugely effective. Like, Burnett, I thought like the fight last night was a cracking fight, and we're kind of robbed in a way of a good ending to the fight with what happened. But I don't think anyone can begrudge Nonito Donaire winning another world title. Like even if he did win it like that, I know he wouldn't have wanted to win it like that either. But he was right in the fight, and a great test for Burnett at this stage of his career. I thought Burnett's snappiness to his punches, his punch selection was good, his hand speed was good, he was feinting, he was moving, he was doing everything right. And yet still at 35, Donaire was trapping him in the corner at times. And Donaire can punch, man. Like he can really punch for 180, especially after getting down the weight as well, back down to 180. You can hear the smack off some of those shots that were landing on the body. And there's some real viciousness to Donaire's punching. Like, having said that, I think that's kind of all he had to offer last night. He was slower. I thought his face was getting marked up a little bit. And Burnett was doing what he had to do until a kind of a bizarre ending that robbed us robbed us really of seeing a great fight, I think, because it was shaping up to be something tasty. Like, I really enjoyed that fight. I don't think Donaire would win the Super Series, but if he did, I couldn't begrudge him either. Like, do you know what I mean? He seems to have it, like he has it in the locker. We talked about it last week. He's always going to be able to punch. One of the best fighters in the world, if not the best fighter at one stage, maybe 2012. And like I said, no, couldn't begrudge him winning another version of a world title. But sad ending for Ryan Burnett. Like, and he has to wait it out now and see how he gets on with this injury. Back injuries are awful, especially for fighters. Like, it's always a risk for your training. Are you going to relapse? Is it going to happen again? It's a tough one for him. But he looked in a bad way last night, and I don't think he's got any quit in him. He wanted to come out, but Adam Boot made the right call pulling him out. Like, if he
it's like the shoulder going, isn't it, Rob? It's always in the back of your mind afterwards. Every fight since.
I mean, like, I know I saw some people on Twitter last night saying, all right, let him have a go if he goes out and gets knocked out. Just, that's grand. But he's not, like, you got to put yourself in a position to be able to punch, like, and I'm not sure if he would have been able to knock Donaire out. Sorry
to interrupt you again, Rob, but just as it happens, I put up a video on the Boxing Asylum Facebook page yesterday, I think it was, of Danny Williams against Mark Potter from the year 2000.
I'd actually seen that, yeah.
Same shoulder, and then knocked him out with a left hook in that round.
Yeah, but I mean, there's no disrespect to Danny Williams' opponent. There's levels, like, isn't there?
I know.
Even Donaire at this stage, like, you'd have been a sitting duck for him, for somebody to tee off on you with that kind of power, especially
to head and body non-stop,
Yeah, and he'd already shown that. Like, as I said, he trapped him in the corner a couple of times and wailed on the head and body. Like, Burnett, I thought, had some really good movement and did really well to avoid it. And it's a pity, and you know what? It's a pity for Burnett as well, because he's a world titleist. Not a mention of the fight over here. Not an absolute mention of it in the price or anything. Nobody really picking up his corner, like. Which is something that all the Irish fighters go through over here, because it's even though it's our most popular sport with the people on the ground, and our the only sport where we will win any medals in the Olympics and stuff like that. Just in terms of coverage over here, like, there's zero coverage. Like, now I know that's been affected by whatever's gone on as well recently, but it's pity for Ryan Burnett, like, because, you know, looking at him last night, he had all the attributes, brilliant movement. Can punch, can jab, can move on the back foot, and then just bizarre ending. Like, but yeah, again, props to Nonito, props to Nonito, and he'll be back again for. I couldn't see him beating Inoue, or I'd see him giving Tete a bit more of a scare, but I couldn't see him beating Inoue. Like,
he might make Tete fight, which would be interesting.
Would it be nice, wouldn't it? After his last fight, it'd be nice. Like, yeah.
Exactly. Right, let's move on to the main event. I was planning on starting, obviously, with Josh Taylor, but we got stuck into Burnett. Me and Gabe were having a little bit of a discussion as well, so that's all good stuff. On to Taylor, an excellent display from Josh Taylor, but I'm going to go into rant mode here, so please forgive me for about 30 seconds or so, because I'm going to have a word. I'm not having that stoppage at all by Victor Loughlin, to be honest with you, and each of you will have your chance to respond and tell me what you think, but Ryan Martin, right? He hadn't won a second of the fight. I agree with that. He wasn't going to win the fight. He swallowed, he froze. No doubt in any of that at all. But you can't use that as an excuse in this instance, in my opinion, for stopping the fight. That was the classic British panic stoppage. Wave it off first, assess the situation later. Martin looks like he was quitting. I agree with that. But he actually wasn't in this instance. He was claiming a shot at the back of the head. So why not at least hear the argument out and then make a decision? As soon as Martin went down, why is Victor Loughlin rugby tackling him to the floor? Why not step back a bit, crouch down, give him space to move, see how he's moving, how natural he is, hear what he's having to say, see what is happening as you make the count. You know, the refs have a complete rush of blood to the head, and this isn't about Ryan Martin. I don't care about him. I'm up for Bellew the week later on. I admit, no problem at all with that. I did think Martin was a good fighter. I thought he was going to produce a much better performance than he did. He was shocking. But this happens all the time. What happens if the fight is 3 rounds apiece on the cards or something? Calm down during the counts, the knockdowns, and the stoppages. Just calm down, British referees. Okay, sorry about that, guys. I just wanted to get that off my chest. Smido, let's go to you first. Talk about Taylor, talk about Martin, talk about the stoppage, whatever takes your fancy.
Steve, I'm glad you've come to me first. I think on the stoppage, I agree with basically everything you've said. There's absolutely no reason why there shouldn't be an 8 count given in that instance at all. A count should have been given. It's as simple as that. He was trying to claim a punch to the back of the head, probably correctly. I know we don't like fighters moaning, but it was borderline back of the head. He just didn't have time to milk or sell the claim to the ref and the wider public, to be fair, because the ref was that quick to jump in and virtually jump on him, as you say, Steve. I think it was mad. And there's parallels to be drawn between that fight, that stoppage, and another fight that we're going to come on to, whereby Miguel Roman went down quite dramatically. I think it was in the 6th round. But was it the knockdown in that fight looked more dramatic than the damage done, and that's pretty similar to what happened in the Taylor fight with Martin. It looked pretty dramatic because the distance between the two fighters by the time he's gone down and hit the ropes was pretty big, and it looks like, there must have been a big punch landed to cause that effect. But what he was doing was trying to milk the back of the head shot. The referee didn't realise that. He's jumped in, and it's not good. It's not good, but unlike some decisions or refereeing actions that, again, we might come to on another fight on the same card, this decision and action by the ref didn't really have an impact on the end result. I think Josh Taylor was pretty much punch perfect last night. Mm-hmm. He was fantastic. And I was just looking at his record before I came on. He's been campaigned perfectly well. He's obviously not on the Sky bandwagon that we're used to and we spend a lot of time talking about. McGuigan's have got their faults, but I think that Taylor's been campaigned fantastically. not only the opponents they've been picking, but the venues for the fight and stuff. Obviously, they've got Scotland on board up there. I thought he was absolutely fantastic. The body work was great. He was always on the move with the jab and controlling the fight at his pace and what he wanted to do. Like I say, body work was fantastic, vicious hooks, and that really did the damage. And Martin just couldn't get off. I didn't really know what to expect from Martin. I was someone who I trust told me he was a live dog in the fight, but he was very disappointing in the end. And he's admitted as much today, Martin. I think I've seen one of his social media posts, and he just, rabbit in the headlights kind of thing. Obviously, Andy will talk to us about the atmosphere, but I doubt that Ryan Martin's encountered any atmosphere like that before. I doubt he's come across as someone as good as Josh Taylor before, even in the gyms. That is a real statement from Josh Taylor last night. But he's had a couple already in his career, but that was a biggie, and fair play to him. He must be one of the favourites to win the tournament.
Yeah, I agree with Smido. Even though Martin was not going to win the fight, it's the wider context, the wider point. We saw a referee do it recently. I can't for the life of me remember who it was. Again, jumped on the fighter and stopped them from getting up. A fighter was trying to get up off the floor, and the ref was like lying on top of him, holding him on the floor. It was completely bizarre. I can't remember who it was anyway. Rob Kelly, I know that you had a different point of view. You weren't as appalled by the stoppage, I suppose, as I was. Respect your opinion, Rob. Go on ahead.
I know it wasn't that. I think you're bang on, and it's funny that you say that, because when I was looking at the fight last night and they introduced Victor Loughlin and then they did a close up onto his face, I thought, I hope this fucker doesn't fuck this up now. Right? But
after his judging performance earlier in the night as well.
Exactly. So I was like, he even looked like he was going to have a mare. But something interesting in the build up, and I was streaming obviously last night on YouTube like everybody. And they did a little cutaway after the Burnett Donaire fight and talked a little bit of background on Josh Taylor and Ryan Martin, right? And the minute it was saying, I'd watched Martin before, and I did predict that Taylor beat him easily last week, but I didn't know this about him. But Abel Sanchez said, yeah, he's like Terry Norris, which Abel Sanchez says about all of his fighters, by the way. Don't know if anyone else has picked up on that, because he had Terry Norris back in the 90s. Mm-hmm. He compares everybody to Terry Norris, but he said, Terry Norris is a lot like Ryan Martin, but Terry Norris really wanted to hurt you. He really had bad intentions, and he was like, I can't bring the mean streak out in this kid. And I'm looking at him, and he's smiling, and I just thought to myself, if you're in a situation where two people want something, the guy without the mean streak is going to give it up quicker, like, isn't he? And I think that's the way he performed last night. I think the occasion got to him. Taylor was brilliant, man. Thrown to the body. He couldn't handle it. He was taking it out of him to the body. But there was about 2 rounds where he just walked forward and threw nothing. It was like he was looking for a way out. And I think he got that clip around the back of the head. He pointed to the back of his head straight away on the way down. Now, I know Victor Loughlin jumped in. He stopped the fight prematurely, but I think Martin wouldn't have lasted maybe another round either. If it hadn't come there, it would have come with the corner pulling him out. You can't do anything with a guy that hasn't got a mean streak in boxing. You know what I mean? It literally is the sport where nice guys finish last. And the contrast to that was, they said about Josh, like, he's got a mean streak in the gym. He really wants to hurt you. You know what I mean? And it was so evident in the fight last night. Like, Josh Taylor was throwing punches with bad intentions. Martin was keeping the high guard. Nothing. Absolutely. He offered nothing. Walked forward, taking shots, looking for a way out. To me,
he's much better than that, Rob. I've seen him before. I'm not saying he's a world beater, but like you say, with a bit of the Terry Norris devil in him. I mean, how many times was Norris disqualified in his career? Like,
well, Terry Norris was a fantastic fighter. I think, and like I said, I think Abel throws that one around too much, because you're putting pressure on fellas by comparing him to great fighters. Like, but Norris, like, I know he's fought at a higher weight, but like, you wouldn't do that to Terry Norris. Like, you wouldn't bully him like that. Like, no way. And I think, you know, like I said, it's the sport where nice guys finish last. You have to have a mean streak. If you're at nothing in a boxing ring, if you don't have the killer instinct. And that was just my 2 cents.
No, that's perfectly valid, Rob. Gabe, I'll be coming to you shortly, also to Andy as well, to look at the wider point of the World Boxing Super Series, which is delivered, I think, Ozzy, to a certain degree. I've enjoyed the fights, I must admit. I've really enjoyed the tournament, even though some people were saying the names maybe weren't the best, especially up at cruiserweight. But this bantamweight tournament and the light welterweight, or whatever you want to call it, tournament, I've been enjoying it so far. You haven't been enjoying too much about last night, Ozzy, and there's one particular individual that is going to hear your wrath, etc.
Yeah, well, I'll just touch on the Taylor performance. I agree with Smid. Pretty much punch perfect. Really impressed. Disappointed with the opponent. I think he was. He just froze. I think it just seemed overwhelmed, very stiff. You could see what he was going to throw. It was quite clear. He posed no problems to Taylor whatsoever. And there's a few people I respect who they never said this guy was going to win, but he could definitely pose problems and ask different questions of Taylor. And quite frankly, he didn't. I think Taylor beat it out of him. And whether it's a combination of the atmosphere, like I said, the occasion, and Taylor being a legit world-class fighter, I just think it was too much for him. And he did it in the right way, Taylor. Now we get on to a Mr. Victor Loughlin, who, for the stoppage, it was truly horrendous. Absolutely horrendous. And there was no need for it. The fighter was not hurt. He didn't go down, he wasn't out of it or anything like that. He was getting up, and before he had a chance to even make a move to get up, the fight's off. Now, regardless, the guy had lost every second of every round. It did not impact the result. However, that's not the point, because yet again, it is another UK decision from where we are seeing poor officiating. I can't see what he'd have seen to think this is enough. It's not as if he was taking, like a sustained beating and he's just waved it off because he's thinking of him. There was nothing wrong with it. Yes, he cried foul for the back of the head. And I think it may well have been, I don't think it was full on the back of the head, but it was definitely more towards the back of the head. And then, from that fight, we then go on to the judging earlier in the night between Zach Parker and Darryl Williams. A good fight for the British title, yet inept judging from Victor Loughlin has seen Darryl Williams wrongly not being awarded the British title at super middleweight. And it was an absolute disgrace. I do not understand how Victor Loughlin can produce a card of 117, 112 to Zach Parker. Ian John Lewis is not a very good judge. He has put in some horrendous cards previously, but he scored the fight right to Williams. Steve Gray, again, another suspect in terms of a dodgy card, awarded it to Parker. I cannot see how they awarded the fight to Parker. The guy was fighting with one arm. One arm due to injury. I think he dislocated his shoulder. Props to him. He carried on and he put in a valiant display. But he did not win this fight. Now, this isn't the first time we've seen Victor Loughlin do this either. He had Luke Campbell beating Jorge Linares. He had Josh Taylor. I think it was a 119-109 card against Victor Postel.
Mm-hmm.
And then, so I had a look at his some of his judging things as well. And there's a couple of other stray cards that he's put in as well. And one that really stood out was I didn't see the fight, but it was Tommy Philbin against Reece Pagan, and it was for the Scottish super middleweight area title. Now, Howard Foster and Michael Alexander both had the fight 96-95 to Philbin. On that, a very close fight, which could have gone either way. Victor Loughlin had it 5 rounds to Tommy Philbin at 98-93. So yet again, another stray card. And I just find it absolutely bizarre. And people bang on about going to Bulgaria, going to Germany, going to Russia, going to the Ukraine. You'll get jobbed on the cards. It's simple as you come to the UK at the moment, you will get jobbed on the cards. Because I think our officials at the moment, some of the cards they put in are an utter disgrace. An utter disgrace. And fans cannot moan about it because it's fact. All too often now we're seeing poor results and nobody questions them about it. The only time they do get questioned, it generates more cash in big rematches. I think we've seen it with Anthony Crolla. Was it in the first Linares fight? People saying he was robbed. Bullshit. But he got him a rematch and it got everybody a ton load of money as well. So that's my rant on the situation. Loughlin is, as a referee, I've always rated him, but that stoppage was very poor. And now all too often now, I think he's turning in more and more poor cards. And it's not fair on the fighters themselves. Darryl Williams should have been waking up as the British super middleweight champion. An excellent achievement. And he's had it taken away from him due to poor judging. And being brutally honest, had Parker not been injured, he probably would have won the fight. But that's regardless. The circumstances meant Williams won the fight. And poor judging hasn't allowed him that glory. And he may never win a British title again.
It was that bad that I watched about 6 or 7 rounds of it, and then it was clear that the Parker guy was injured, not throwing the right hand at all. And although Williams, in my opinion, wasn't doing brilliantly, he was clearly throwing more punches due to he had 2 fit arms rather than one. And Zach Parker clearly was not doing enough to win rounds. It's as simple as that. Parker was not doing enough to win rounds. So I was getting a bit bored, and I turned it off after about 9 rounds. Got the stream back on, and Parker's celebrating. And I said, like, my missus is not interested at all. And I said, "What the fuck?" Like, she thought something was up with the baby. And she says, "What are you on about?" I said, I could not believe my eyes.
It was way more serious than that, Smith.
Oh, way more serious. Seriously, I could not believe my eyes. I'm not exaggerating. It's just madness.
I've not seen anybody award the fight to Parker. Anybody.
It was impossible to do so.
I don't get. I mean, Callum Sauerland after the thing, he's saying, "Oh, it was a close fight to score." Was it? Fuck. It was not a difficult fight to score, and it says it all. When Parker was the home fighter, he's promoted by Sauerland. Whilst he wasn't in his hometown, he was the home fighter. Ronald McIntosh and Barry Jones both had Williams winning. Not by an absolute landslide, but a more than comfortable winner. Yet Parker gets the decision. It's a joke, an absolute joke. And you see fighters like Darryl Williams, I think, this time last year, actually retired from boxing due to the politics out the ring. And he just basically grew fed up.
Ricky Hatton again, wasn't it, I think?
Yeah. He was training with Hatton. I don't know who he trains. Looks like he's back down in London now.
Dave John, yeah.
Yeah, he came back, got this shot at the British title. He had 2 great fights with Jermaine Smile, by the way, as well. Always good to mention those 2. He gets this opportunity, and it's taken away. And he may look at it and think, why the fuck do I bother? I retired once due to the politics. I now get screwed out the ring with dodgy cards. What's the point?
I wonder, Ozzy, why he didn't go in on Parker's arm. You know, maybe a bit of experience. I thought he would have noticed that and maybe tried to pull him to the side in the clinches. Maybe even actually target the arm and hit him consistently on the arm and make Parker say, "This is just hurting me too much." I
agree with that, and maybe it's just a bit of experience because whilst Williams has had the 17 fights, I think his caliber of opponent hasn't been, outstanding. He obviously won an English title and things like that, so I think more recently his opponents have definitely been better. And he probably is a bit of experience. But to be fair, Steve, he didn't need to because he was winning the rounds and he was winning the fight. So he didn't need to look to target the shoulder because what he was doing, realistically, on work rate alone, was winning him the fight. So it was a terrible, terrible card and a poor result for British boxing, in my opinion.
Yeah, on another disappointing note as well, Darryl Williams has been known to bark in the ring in the past, but there was no barking to be heard, unfortunately, last night. I was hoping he was going to let one out at some point, but he didn't. Gabe, I'm not going to talk about the Williams-Parker fight with you. I'm going to talk about Taylor against Martin, but more to the point, moving ahead, Gabe, in the World Boxing Super Series, if Josh Taylor wins this tournament, then I'll tell you what, he's going to have to do it the hard way. I know Ryan Martin didn't really put up much of a fight last night, but you're talking about a 22-0 American visitor, gets rid of him. He has to fight Ivan Baranchyk next, the beast, who I've actually picked to win this tournament. That's going to be another L for me. I can smell it coming already. And then, likely, Taylor, if he gets past him, will probably have to fight, let's be honest, Regis Prograis in the final and beat him. If Taylor wins this tournament, I tell you what, Gabe, he's one of the hottest prospects, contenders, whatever you want to call him. By that point, world champions, possibly, in boxing at the moment. It'll be a hell of a feat.
Yeah, absolutely. I think that's a top-notch guy that you got that comes into this tournament and ends up coming out of it in a winner's position. I think you have to give all the guys that are in the tournament credit because they are jumping into this tournament and there's some really stiff competition. These are guys that a lot of average fans probably haven't heard of, depending on where you're from. Excuse me. I think that a really decent, knowledgeable boxing fan would know most of these guys. Here in the States, I think that there's a lot of people that look at this and they know Prograis, they know Relic, and they maybe have heard of Flanagan. Ryan Martin, I don't know what the general consensus is on him. But there's three names that they may recognize. Relic, because he's fought on TV here in the past. Flanagan, I think because people probably have heard of him at this point. And, of course, Prograis is the next great hype train, and we'll see what happens with him. Not to say that I don't like the guy. So if Josh Taylor comes out of this tournament, or whoever does, and is the winner of this tournament, that's a hell of a feat, because despite the fact that you have a lot of guys here who may not be big names yet, you've got such a solid cast of fighters here that I don't think that anybody who comes out of it is going to be lightly regarded. I don't see how you could, because this is a great field. To me, the World Boxing Super Series is probably the best thing that's been going in a long while, as far as unifying some titles, getting some great fighters in there, and seeing what happens whenever you got a good mix of fighters. You turn on the PBC and you get some mediocre matchups, and then finally they'll make a good one. 147 was one that I was recently thinking of. We had to wait forever before we got Danny Garcia and Sean Porter. Here, there's no waiting. The only wait is in between fights. And I love the way they're setting this stuff up. Again, the World Boxing Super Series gets nothing but rave reviews from me. And, to just a wider point on your question, I don't care who comes out of it. Whoever comes out of it, to me, is the man at the weight. If anybody has anything else to say, well, I don't think they know shit about what they're talking about.
I said Gabe. Gabe going in there, everybody. Final points from this card before we move on and bring in Andy, obviously, on Taylor. Parker Williams, we discussed that. Postol got a points win over C.R. Ozgul. I thought that it was nailed on that Postol would stop him. He didn't. Fair play to Mr. Ozgul. He can come again. Paul Butler defeated Johan Boyo, a few other fighters of interest. We were talking about this last week, Andy, about Josh Taylor. I've obviously picked Baranchyk to win the tournament, but, I mean, it's not going to end well if Taylor can get the type of form that he was displaying last night. We looked at Anthony Yigit, didn't we, against Baranchyk, Andy, last week, and sort of took it in comparison with what Josh Taylor would do. Obviously, he's a southpaw like Yigit. He has good movement, but he has that dig. He has that bit of nous. He has that bit of skill. He will get inside. He will find the gaps on the bulldozer that is Baranchyk, and he'll be hitting him in between the Baranchyk's attacks and that, and that's going to be Taylor's main point of focus, I think.
Yeah, if he probably need to step inside. I mean, under no illusions whatsoever, that fight is going to be a hard one. Baranchyk obviously got a lot of confidence. He's a big, strong kid. He is, 26, 27, so he's pretty much entering his peak. Technically, probably not as good as Josh Taylor, who I agree with everything's been said. I will probably put on a different slant on the stoppage if I can at some point, but I just felt last week when we spoke about Martin, for example, for what I saw him, and I know a few others who actually watch fights and study tape and stuff like that. They did expect Martin to kind of give, he was going to pose at least a few questions, or at least that's how we felt it was going to be, and they never turned up for whatever reason. It's just. He just was never in the fight. He lost every round. Josh just absolutely dominated him, either at mid distance or an inside. Didn't really matter. Josh, as Rob says, he's going to have that evil streak in him. He's going to have it against Baranchyk absolutely. But Martin did absolutely nothing there last night. And what I was going to say about the stoppage was, if you look at it, I'll put it this way: you've got a fighter who is getting dominated, losing every round of the fight. You could probably see by his body language he didn't really want to be in there, right? He took the punch. Okay, what's happened is he stepped into Josh's pocket, right, and then at the same time Taylor's through the left hook, and it's hit him either behind the ear or the back of the head. So I wouldn't say it's an intentional foul, right? But the way he spun up off that shot was he actually held the other side of his head rather than the side he actually got hit on. He's then collapsed against the ropes. So I can maybe see that, maybe because the fight wasn't, competitive before the stoppage, he is losing every round. He was landing hard shots on Martin. I think Victor Loughlin just basically stepped in there and just says, "Look, enough's enough. You're just getting outclassed. You're end up going to get badly hurt." And plus, to see a fighter actually getting hit on one side of the head and then hold the other side of the head, if they says, "Look, I've been hit," but I don't know. But just the way he collapsed against the ropes and that, I don't know. You could probably say that maybe Taylor could have been held up for, hitting him while he was down. I think he might have been done for the second shot. Certainly up against the ropes. I mean, if the ropes hold you up like that, then it's a definite knockdown. But I can take Ozzy's point as well, especially about the judging situation about Vic's cars in the past, and that I was talking about it during the week. But for that stoppage there, he generally is. I've Nibby's banged the drum harder for him than me. He is a good ref. Last night, I really don't know. It was probably a kind of mix and match. You got a fighter who is completely out of his depth, or clearly looked like he was out of his depth, and maybe a referee who took pity on him and just decided, "Look, listen, there's no point in you continuing. You're just going to get an absolute arse kicking if this goes any further." And you could maybe even get, whatever career he's going to have left could have been absolutely beaten out of him there last night because Taylor was relentless. I totally get a thing about Sanchez saying that I think he even said he was overtrained or something like that, maybe. I don't know. I mean, end of the day, you get a fighter. As I said it last week as well, once we get these quarterfinals out of the way, it's going to get really interesting. I mean, you kind of tell me that Prograis Relic is going to be, asking a few questions. You got Prograis, who's probably like the, boxer puncher of sorts, and you got Relic, who's got this unorthodox style, always difficult to fight against, always difficult to look good against, and you've got Baranchyk, who's just this wall, and Taylor, probably one of the kind of technically best fighters in the division. The semi-finals are going to be amazing. I can't wait for them.
Can I just say, Scottish referee for a Scottish home fight title fight? Well, not title fight, but isn't that the type of thing that
why
the McGuigans, for example?
Why you get English referees, refereeing English fighters in the world title fights? So
but why isn't no one questioning it? I'm not saying it's a Scottish problem. I don't really give a fuck. I'm just saying
look at the depth,
why is no one questioning it? Is it not an international referee? That's all.
In the day, it's the commission, not the commission. It's the sanctioning body that puts up the official. And at the end of the day, I know for a fact, Vic is enrolled in some Spanish-speaking class, and he is a WBC registered referee. So probably
who were the judges all British? What were the makeup of the judges?
The judges were
Barboso. He's actually quite fair in that. He's usually kind of put some fair scorecards. Who's the other two, Steve?
Sorry, I was thinking
John
Burnett.
Lewis.
Yeah, I
John
don't
Lewis
actually
was the
know.
other one. John Lewis was the other one, and the other one was some Italian guy, I think, who was worth watching.
I'm just saying that if the McGuigans fought that fight away from home and they had a referee from the state where Ryan Martin was, because Scotland's basically a state in terms of size and population, I think the McGuigans would question that, and fair play to them.
Smitho, trust your instincts, Smitho. Are you like me? Whenever you see in a big fight and the Victor Loughlin appears or Howard Foster appears, do you think, this could be a potential issue? Because that does hit me. I do.
I don't really I don't really pay as much attention to the individuals as what you guys might do, and fair play to you. But I just look at the nationality. We often hear it coming up. They talk about neutral this and neutral that. It's just something that I think that maybe should have been mentioned more. I'm not saying it's a big conspiracy, by the way.
No, I'm not either. I think I know what you're getting at. And Ozzy, I know you're looking to jump in as well. I just think to myself, whenever I see the likes of Loughlin or somebody like that in that fight, I think to myself, if there's a bit of controversy here, this could get a little bit messy. Just that's what does pop into my head, I must admit, from time to time.
I just think they're all as bad as each other. You go, Oz.
I was going to say, Loughlin's actually refereed 4 of Taylor's last 6 fights.
Mickey Van and Ricky Hatton, eh?
Yeah. But no, when you were mentioning then, Smid, I was wanting. I'd have preferred to have seen Twinkle Toes Terry O'Connor maybe in the ring instead of Big Victor Lachlan instead.
Twinkle.
I think Big Terry would have done perhaps a better job, amble on his feet, getting in and out. We know what he's like.
There's no way Big Terry would have got across that ring in time to see Josh Taylor.
And if he landed on Ryan Martin would have never fought
God.
again.
If that had been Terry O'Connor, Josh Taylor would have probably landed 10 punches by the time fucking O'Connor decided to move. So Matt could have died there last night.
Terry O'Connor's been appointed as the referee for Usyk Bellew next week.
Oh, is he really? No way. Oh,
yeah.
God.
Oh no. Better get the money on Bellew for a knockout.
He's going to be piggybacking Tony across the ring if he gets hurt or anything.
Fuck.
Right, okay, let's move on, shall we, gentlemen? Some good discussion so far. You're listening to the 298th episode of the Boxing Asylum Nuthouse podcast with Andy, Gabe, Ozzy's on as well, Rob Kelly, Smido, myself, Steve. More fight previews to come, also listener questions, Bellew of the Weeks, and much more. Don't forget to hit like on this video and leave a comment as well. Show YouTube the decision they made was bullshit. Talking about bullshit, Ozzy, was this bullshit on Friday night or was it good, this Ultimate Boxer thing? I didn't actually see anything of it. I know a few people were tweeting back and forward. I haven't watched it. I'm imagining, Ozzy, you might have watched it if indeed it was shown on some kind of digital medium, Ultimate Boxer.
Yeah, I watched it all, and do you know what? I really enjoyed it. It was great. It started off as a stream on the Boxing News Facebook page, and then Spike showed the semi-finals and final on the box, and it was great. It was a similar concept to Prize Fighter, exactly the same, really. It was at the light heavyweight division. And it was all lads in and around the, like the area English level type thing. And some of the fights produced were absolutely superb. Just, when Prize Fighter first came on the scene, and it was quite enjoyable to watch because they just go in, throw big shots for 3 rounds. You'd see knockouts, it'd be entertainment, and then it's done and dusted quickly. Really impressed by the winner, Shakam Pitters. I think he's about 6'6" and makes light heavyweight. He was absolutely huge in there. He beat a friend of the pod, Dex Spellman, in the final, who recorded a hell of a knockout in the first round, KOing Sam Horsfall. But all in all, it was good, and I don't mind it. I mean, I think the first one was a bit hit and miss because they brought in lads that were relatively unknown, and then they stuck it at the MEN Arena, which was a 20,000 seater arena, and barely sold any tickets. This was at the O2 Indigo, which was like a York Hall type place in terms of capacity, and it was really good, enjoyable. And I always say it: if you match lads relatively evenly, no matter whether it be at world or area level, it will usually produce the goods. And I would say near enough every fight did produce the goods. And for a Friday night show, it was enjoyable. They had some geezer from Love Island on as like the chief support, Idris Virgo. Not really sold on him, and to be honest, I don't think anybody tuned in because he was on the card. But no, a success for Paulie Malignaggi was on comms as well. It's his little project with Hatton and Anthony Croller. But Malignaggi is always good value. I think the way he calls the fight's excellent. And so that was a nice touch to have. And yeah, and an enjoyable night's boxing. And if people want to catch up on it, I'd definitely recommend to and tune into the next one as well, because if it's anything like this one, it'll be an enjoyable night.
Rob, jotting over to the States, a fight that I haven't actually seen, but I wouldn't mind watching, actually, to be honest. Sullivan Barrera, he's able to mop up the guys just below world level against Shawnee Monahan was the latest victim. Dennis Duglin got a win on the undercard, not too worried about him. Sullivan Barrera keeping himself active, keeping himself interesting, maybe get another title shot at some point in the near future.
Yeah, he's not a bad fighter, Sullivan Barrera. Like, I remember when he fought Ward, a lot of people were saying he was going to cause Ward some kind of problems. Like, I remember that being a horrible, messy fight. Like, I think Ward dropped him at some stage in that fight. Then he went and broke Joe Smith's jaw, didn't he? And who did he lose the title to then?
Bivol, wasn't it?
Oh, Bivol, yeah. So, like, I like Barrera. Like, I think he was always going to be favoured to beat Shawnee Monahan. I haven't seen that fight, and I haven't seen
Berchelt.
Yeah, no, but I'm hearing great things about that. I was just a bit fucked today with the tonsillitis, so I'm going to catch it up probably tomorrow. So yeah, I didn't see any of the states. I fell asleep watching the Ryan Martin fight just when it was over. So yeah, that's as much as I can contribute to last night's action. I'm afraid, dude.
Not a problem, Robert. You can contribute later to our questions and also our previews for next week, so do stick around. Smido, you're hardcore extraordinaire. You joined me in watching the fight from Texas. Gabe stomping ground, Miguel Berchelt against Mickey Roman. Roman, fair play to him. He's had a good go over the years. He's finally got his shot. I think it was on his home turf as well over in El Paso. There wasn't a lot of sweet science involved, but this was one hell of a brawl. I actually really enjoyed it. Good old-fashioned slugfest.
Yeah, I enjoyed it. I stumbled up on it this morning. Someone tweeted a YouTube link to it, and I just watched that. I didn't even know it was on, Steve. That's how much of a casual I am. But no, really enjoyed it. I like Berchelt. He's come from pretty much nowhere in my eyes. Obviously, getting that win over Vargas, and then he's smack bang in there. Pretty active as well. Just the there was just chucking loads of punches, Steve. I mean, that's as casual as I can put it. Both men chucked a load of punches. There was multiple knockdowns. Berchelt didn't have it all his own way. Like we said earlier, touched on earlier about the knockdown. In the UK, the first knockdown that Roman received would have maybe, depending on what ref they had, been stopped because he'd been hurt badly by 2 or 3 body shots leading up to that, and then the final right hand, although it was a good shot, kind of like confirmed his visit to the canvas. It didn't discombobulate him or anything like that, but the way he fell looked quite dramatic, and yeah, could have been stopped. But absolutely the right decision not to stop it. He got up. He made Roman managed to make it to the 9th round, where it just all became too much. But I just really enjoyed it. I think Berchelt wings punches from all. He throws very long hooks. I mean, he's pretty big for the weight anyway, isn't he? And that Berchelt against that fella who won the other week. What's his name? Machado. Yeah. Machado. Yeah. Just make that happen. I don't really care who promotes it.
What about Berchelt against Gervonta Davis, Smid?
Well, yeah, but Gervonta Davis ain't interested in fighting anyone, is he?
Yeah, that's right.
So this is another. Because I looked at the rankings earlier. Berchelt's 1 and Davis is 2nd on BoxRec. But I just completely dismissed that because I can't remember the last time Gervonta Davis fought. Like, I don't care. But I know people have reported, he's moved away from Floyd and that, locational rather than contractual, but maybe. But yeah, if that happens, I'm all on, and I'd love to see Davis get splattered.
He's moved away from Floyd, but he's moved towards Adrian Broner. It's like, getting ill from malaria and then getting hepatitis.
Oh, it's like losing from malaria and getting AIDS.
Like that. We'll get banned if you say stuff like that.
I tell you what's pissing me off though. Eddie Hearn's on about Gervonta Davis every fucking 2 minutes. Every chance he gets, it's like a football club manager tapping up a player who's on a contract with someone else. Like, it's outrageous. Every interview he gets, every chance he gets in the States, he wants to take Gervonta Davis to DAZN. Like,
yeah, he's desperate for a big name. I see he's quoted today saying he still needs like a Mikey Garcia or a Charlo to kind of for DAZN and sort of shit and that. And you say like, we've already got 8 world champions and that, but we still need someone like Mikey Garcia.
Is he not riding off the Canelo train anymore, trying to pretend to the people on Twitter that he actually has something to do with it?
Yeah. Well, the thing is, he's aging or signed up to this shit. You've got Jacobs. He keeps saying Jacobs is this great middleweight fighter. He's got Usyk, who's like the only undisputed champion, apart from Stila Bracus, obviously. But
co-promotional deal with Usyk.
Yeah.
He needs to start. I think we kind of lose sight of the fact that Gervonta Davis is actually a really good fighter due to his outside the ring antics and his inactivity and his disputes with Floyd. Like, I was looking at some of his stuff during the week, and he really is a good little fighter. Like, and it's a pity to see him being handled like this. However, I wouldn't say we're going to see him in any classic matchups if Eddie gets his hands on him. Do you know what I mean? He'll be on a DAZN card once every 2 or 3 months.
Who's he going to be fighting from the UK, Rob? What weight is he? Super feather, is it?
Rematch with Liam Williams. That's the one we're all looking for.
Liam Smith. No, it was Liam Walsh, wasn't it?
Oh, Liam Walsh. Sorry.
Walsh,
I get confused with my Liams. But I know, like, the only fight really that you want to see is Gervonta versus Lomachenko. It's not going to happen. Like, so fight versus Berchelt, I watch for sure.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, thanks for that, Smid. Coming to you in a minute, Ozzy, talking about Jay Harris. Before we do so, Andy, just keeping along this theme, we were talking about this during the week, actually, and Liam Jordan has jumped in. He said, question for you, Andy. Just watched IFL TV. Has Johnny Matchroom Nelson lost his fucking mind? I'm sure he is related to Jazz, the casual shopkeeper. Jokes aside, has social media saved or broken boxing? Ex-respected pros are talking utter shite for likes and views. And Andy, we had a discussion about this on Twitter during the week, didn't I? And I made the point, which might sound a bit overblown, but when does marketing, PR, trying to sell a product actually cross over the line into deception? Because if you've got fans, right, paying money for pay-per-views off the back of being sold these absolute lies, which happens because I know people in work who do it, watching these videos, then where do you sort of cross the line? And in relation to Liam's question, Andy, another Liam, has social media broken or saved boxing?
I suppose mentally, if you're into that, it would probably it's broken boxing. I mean, you read some shite on there. I mean, Johnny Nelson's comments this week. I mean, if he doesn't win Bellew of the week, I'm quitting this shit. I mean, fucking hell, talking like Usyk's no got the skill set to beat Bellew or something along those lines.
Oh, that's shocking.
That is absolutely deplorable. I mean, come on, we've all got our favourites and stuff like that. I mean, there's no question about it. But, it'd be a hypocrite to say that we've never, or any of us have never been biased towards a certain fighter because he's your favourite fighter or whatever, and that. Or you feel like Next Door, for example. He's just doing it purely fucking just to get the bites, get the hits on the websites. I think, or I really don't know. I mean,
is it just like towing the company line 101 though? Like even when you hear him say like, he hasn't got the technical ability to beat Usyk hasn't got the technical ability Tony Bellew has. You want to see my dad's face when I said that to him the other night because he doesn't really keep up to date. I was just saying it to him. I was like, Usyk, Johnny Nelson reckons Usyk hasn't got the technical ability to beat Tony Bellew, and he just burst out laughing. He was like, "Fuck is wrong with that guy?" Like,
I mean, some of the feedback in that I saw, some of the comments, and I'm like, it was pretty unanimous. What are you smoking? Because it needs to be put on the National Health Service to fucking deal with lots of people who simply need to go to sleep because you can't make comments like that and expect people to fucking believe it.
That makes me think he hasn't seen Usyk.
Aye, but in the day,
do you know what I'm saying?
I know what you mean. But how the fuck can you go through a division, unify it, become undisputed, and yet people seem to think that Bellew is. I'm not saying he hasn't got a chance. I mean, it's a fight at the end of the day. It just takes one punch. We saw it with Burnett last night. It just takes a freak injury, But the safe money is that Usyk's going to win the fight. I mean, there's nothing to suggest that I've seen, and I've watched Usyk, a fair bit. He's got a chin. He's fought punchers. He's fought all types of fighters. This guy as an amateur seen every single fucking opponent who can bang at every level.
Andy, if Bellew wins, there's going to be something. Twitter's going to melt down.
Bellew can't win.
Oh, we've written him off before,
No,
Smith.
I'm
not writing him off.
I'm not coming on next week.
I'm not writing him off.
Bellew can't win.
It's getting to the point like Bellew's a bit like Hopkins, like you just write him off at your peril. But at the end of the day, David. There's a reason why he ended up fighting David Hay, right? It's and there's a reason why he moved up to heavyweight to fight him because he knew that division was calling, and at one point he did an option, either go up in weight or this division, this tournament was going to come up, and then the pressure was on because he had one of the belts at that point. The pressure was on him to then decide, right, am I going to go into this tournament? And
but it was a perfect storm because he got to avoid the tournament. He got to cash in against David Hay twice. But obviously, we've got to say fair play to him for taking Usyk. But I think not only is it, like you say, and it might be verging on deception, this monopoly is, we've known for a while, this Sky Matchroom monopoly is dangerous because there's no one like on here. If Steve says something ridiculous, we'll call him a twat, or whatever. If I say something silly, you'll call me an idiot. Mm-hmm. There's no one to argue it on Sky. They're all at it. They'll be tweeting it. It's almost, you could almost write the script like Fowler, Nelson, obviously Caldwell, but he's involved with this. But
Who was remember that commentator Andy something? Remember he first came on his first live broadcast, and he was actually quite fair, didn't you know?
Is it
And
Scott?
Andy Clark.
Andy Clark, right? And he was
Oh.
absolutely brilliant in the first broadcast, but then it seemed to be like he had to kind of like water it down a wee bit, and he just became a complete company man. So you know, all we want is people like Ian Dark, for example, to call it as it is. You know, you can't agree with everybody all the time. I mean, Christ, I remember when Calzaghe beat that. I think it was a Brazilian fighter that he fought before he fought Eubank. And Ian Dark and Frank Warren are on Sky Sports fucking arguing about the quality of the opposition.
That's right.
Can you imagine Johnny Nelson standing there with Eddie Hearn on live TV arguing about the fucking quality of a fucking...
Sure, you heard Ian Dark on that clip even whenever Barry Hearn saying that Herbie Hyde's going to be the next best fighter ever. And he's like, come on, steady on a bit, you know.
This is emotional stuff we're getting here, Barry. I mean, Christ.
Well, and there was a bit, he was giving it to Frank a little bit last week, you know, when they were talking about Yard. I forgot the fella's name, the veteran.
Paul Dempsey.
Yeah, he was giving it to Frank.
He would give it, yeah.
Paul Dempsey's about the closest, I think, to someone who will put up some kind of an argument, isn't he? Do
you remember the David Hay thing, though, whenever he said about Demore and Dempsey completely slated the fight and then he wasn't brought back again for Hay's next fight against the Human Password?
The fucking wonder.
While we're on it, that undercard next week's just shambolic. So it's going to be 20 quid, yet another pay-per-view. We've got Crawler against this Yardan that's been on there for a while. We've got Burns and Scott Cardle was announced yesterday. They've put a Ukrainian Olympian on there for Usyk's side of the deal. What else have we got on there? Like, it's not.
Well, I don't know, but I don't know if I answered Steve's question when I got brought in there. Steve, did I
No,
answer
that's
it?
fine. That's fine. No. I think what I will say finally, and Smido touched upon it as well. Look, you know, I'm wondering where the lines blur between marketing and deception. Because if you got somebody coming to me in work and saying to me, "Oh, I'm going to buy the Kell Brook Gennady Golovkin pay-per-view," "Oh, are you right? Yeah, I'm going to buy it for 20 quid because I think Kell Brook has a genuine chance." "Oh, you do you?" "Yeah, because Johnny Nelson was saying on IFL that he thinks that Kell Brook is going to knock out Gennady Golovkin." "Oh, that's not going to happen." "Well, that's what he said, so I'm going to make a monetary exchange on the basis of what Johnny Nelson has said." Is it too far-fetched what I'm saying here, Smido? Where's marketing? Where's deception?
It's not. It's not. And people are going to laugh at me, but you know, we've seen examples of biased mainstream national media before have an impact on the ballot box. Like so Johnny Nelson, a so-called expert former world champion, saying that Kell Brook can beat Gennady Golovkin and Tony Bellew is more technically gifted than Alexander Usyk. It's not. No, it's absolutely. Do you know what? Do you know what I've just thought there? If the Sky and Matchroom gravy train derails badly and Johnny Nelson has to go and apply for a job or somewhere else, or you know, has to go do a sit-down interview, you could just reel off hundreds of these articles that he's done. Say, you know, "Oh, what was you thinking behind saying that Bellew was more technically gifted than Usyk?" Or what was you thinking in saying that Audley had a chance against David A? Or what was you thinking in... Like, it's embarrassing.
Well, Johnny would turn around and say, "I can adapt that thinking and say whatever you want me to say."
Yeah. Do you know what, though, Steve? Like, obviously, Johnny Nelson's going to be getting paid a fair few quid, and within reason, as long as I'm not breaking the law, and my gaffers are saying, "Oh, I'll give you X amount of money to do as what I say," within it not breaking the law, a lot of us will do it, wouldn't we?
Yeah, well, that's true. Right, go on, Ozzy. I know you wanted to add something on this. Also, segue into Jay Harris.
Yeah, I actually can't remember what I was going to add now. It's just thinking. But you're right, though, in terms of thinking. It's like propaganda. They say what they want you to believe. I mean, let's have it right. They've got people believing that Dave Allen is a legit contender as a boxer. Well, it's absolute bollocks, but because he's got a bit of banter, I mean, we all remember him bringing Jason Gavin over, don't we? Because he had the back, and everyone buzzes off him. That's what it's all about now, and we saw it this week. Edward Hearn does not want to make the good fights. He makes the fights that do the numbers. He admitted it himself.
Kim Jong-un.
Boris Cardell's going to sell a fucking shitload, eh? Fucking hell.
Well,
Two Scottish fighters fighting fucking Liverpool.
Do you know, it's not a terrible fight. Obviously, they've both got...
It's fucking late. No, it's fucking shit.
Yes, it is late.
Smudge, you've got the fight's been made in a week's notice. What kind of shape is it?
Hang on, let him qualify his comment. Go on, speak.
It's not a terrible fight, but at 8 days' notice, it's shocking.
It's a shite fight. Cardle's fucking awful. Burns is like fucking.
Yeah.
Burns fucking. Even at this fucking rate, should be like fucking levels above him. You should stop him as well. I'll put that on the record right now.
Yeah, I would.
But no, it's but to be fair, Cardle was on this card anyway against Joe Cordina, and Cordina pulled out, and Burns was in camp for fighting on a show in
Kansas.
In Kansas, yes. Yeah, so I presume he's been pulled off that.
You Wizard of Oz.
And he's thingy, and he's obviously got this Cardle fight, but no, we can talk about that card anyway in a bit. But no, just a quick mention for Jay Harris, who's been on the pod previously. He successfully defended his Commonwealth flyweight title on Saturday night, stopping Ross Murray in 3 rounds. So, good fighter, Jay Harris. I'd like to see him in with Sonny Edwards. I think that would be a good fight. I think that'd be a great fight. Harris can clearly dig at the weight, and I think his caliber of opponents, for what is difficult at the smaller weights, particularly for like British titles at UK level, is pretty decent. So it'd be good to see him get a decent fight with Sonny Edwards. And again, congratulations for stopping Ross Murray on Saturday night.
Well said. Right, let's move on to the rest of the questions and then on to the previews and out. Jeremy Hitchcock, Gabe, has asked a question. I think I know the answer to the first part of the question. Is Nonito Donaire a Hall of Famer? I think you pretty much made your feelings known on that, Gabe. But he also asks, does Patreon friend Jeremy Hitchcock, what about Vic Darchinyan, Gabe? Is Vic Darchinyan a Hall of Famer?
Well, I think that's an interesting question. I think it depends on how you look at it. Do I think? Let's go with Donaire first. Do I think he's a Hall of Famer? Probably he gets in based on what other people think, because I'm not one of the people that votes for him. Do I think he gets in? If I let Darchinyan in, then I have to let him in. And I do think Vic Darchinyan is Hall of Fame worthy. So
really,
I do. Give me 1 second here, so I can go through. Now I did an article about this on the old when we had our forum and on our old webpage, and I listed the criteria of why I believe that he is a contender for a Hall of Fame. I think a lot of people wouldn't agree with me on this one, so that's okay. So he won titles in the flyweight division.
Mm-hmm.
He won titles in the super flyweight division.
His flyweight title division reign was ended in 2007 by who?
Donaire.
Exactly, and then he moved up to super fly. So carry on. Sorry, Gabe. Go ahead.
To super fly. If you count the IBO as a belt, which I gather some people would say okay, some people may not go with that.
You're stretching, Gabe. You're stretching.
Yeah, absolutely. That's what I'm saying. I'm saying I'm not sure if you can use that as one of the criteria there.
Okay.
But if you do, then that's one other division. But he was the first guy to unify the super flyweight division. First guy to do it. He had the WBC, the IBF, and the WBA divisions. So I think those are pretty good criteria. I think they get kind of pushed aside in favor of guys like Pacquiao, who won 47 titles in 38 divisions or whatever the fuck it was, So for me, I don't know. I think Darchinyan's a close call. At the end of the day, probably not, because of the amount of losses he ended up with in his career. And he ended up with quite a few losses. What was he at? 10 losses, 8 to 10 losses, somewhere in that range.
9.
He lost to Yamanaka. He lost several of his last few fights by knockout, pretty vicious knockouts as well. He lost to Nicholas Walters. There was a guy on a PBC card where he lost for a featherweight title. I can't remember.
Cuellar, no?
Yeah. The guy that got knocked out pretty good by Oh,
Davis.
Yeah, by Davis.
Javonte,
Yep.
wasn't it? Yeah.
But
Yeah.
you're right, Davis.
Okay.
So I don't know. I can see why people might not agree with me on Darchinyan. I can see it. But for me, it is. But also on the other hand, like I said, because I put Darchinyan and I know that you have to put Donaire in, and I would tend to think that in the end, what it would look like is, and I'm pretty certain of this, Donaire gets in, Darchinyan gets left out. But Vic has been always one of my all-time favorite fighters. You know what he's going to do. He's going to bring that crazy left hand. And so with that in mind, I think that's where you look at the situation and say, well, he had a great career, but was it Hall of Fame worthy? Well, compared to what a lot of other people have done, maybe not quite.
I'll actually add and say that he will end up on the ballot at some point. Might not be a first or a second or third ballot, right? But he will end up on the ballot at some point. He's the last lineal super flyweight champion right now. Right, I can go through the whole list if you want, but
And he knocked out Mijares and Jorge Arce, two very good names.
I was going to say you got Mijares, Arce, you got Krylov, Maldonado, you call him Maldonado, I think his name was.
Maldonado.
Burgos, Pacheco, Jimenez. You know, these are decent, good fighters. By the way, Singawacha was also a good fighter, especially down at that weight division. You know, he picked up.
Irene Pacheco, he took the title off. He was 30-0, beating Damian Kelly. Excellent fighter.
Yep, Pacheco was a really good fighter back in the day. So I just think, as I say, maybe the defeats might go against him. Who knows? But you know, he's in good company. I mean, guys like Chu and Penalusa and Moon and Roman held the title at super flyweight. So I think if you're holding the title for, I mean, it didn't lose the title actually either. He gave it up to move up in weight.
That's right.
And he held the title for about 2 or 3 years. You know, the lineal title. So yeah, I think just due will be given to him at some point. Maybe no first ballot, as I say, but sometime in the future probably.
You know that Hall of Fame? Did they ever come off the ballot?
I don't think so, because I'm sure I've seen Ben and Eubank.
Yeah.
So
and Roman's name on that list as well.
They just get carried over, don't they, and keep floating about, and then eventually someone, might get together and put them on.
So people like that say you've been on the ballot 5 years, you're only going to get inducted into the Hall of Fame in basically a shit year of first timers.
Possibly.
This is the way it is.
Yeah, that's part of it, and that's why I think that you see that happen a lot of times.
Does it work like that in other sports, Dave?
Yeah, what's like in the NFL, yeah?
Yeah, I don't really follow that stuff. But, yeah.
So on a weak year, Gabe, it sucks up some of the names that might have not got through on a stronger year.
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, the thing is, I'll just expand to that. Just what Smith was asking about other sports. Now, in the NFL, you can be withheld for the Hall of Fame induction because of your attitude or how you were perceived to treat people or speak to people and stuff like that. You know, it doesn't really matter about what your numbers and that were, or how many Super Bowls you won, or how many fucking touchdown passes you caught. Some of the fucking reasons for why you're not in the Hall of Fame is actually quite baffling.
You're in the Asylum Hall of Fame, Smither.
Fucking too right.
Right, thanks, Gabe. Let's move on. Rob,
while I'm at it.
Oh, sorry. Have you got anything to add, Gabe? Sorry, go ahead.
What's that?
You got anything to add before we move on to Rob?
Oh no, I just wanted to go ahead and get it in a quick fuck the NFL real quick.
Excellent, yeah. Right, Rob, a change in tack back up to the weekend. Simon and Levy said, hard to see anybody beating Inoue in the bantamweight tournament. Who have they got, as in you, Rob, winning the 140-pound tournament? I'd go with Program myself, said Simon, but if Taylor can get past Baranchyk, that's one hell of a final. 140 pounds WBSS, Rob, who you got?
Jeez, I don't know, man, because I predicted Terry Flanagan was going to beat Prograis and stop him. I'd like to see Taylor do it. Like, I really would like to see him do it. Tough ask, but if he does it, like you said, he's done it the hard way. Don't know. I can't see. Like, he hasn't shown me anything so far in his career to make me think he's a pushover or anyone could really beat him. Do not say that no one could beat him, but no one's going to beat him easily. Like, he's got great footwork. He can punch a bit, southpaw. Fast hands, dedicated, bit of a mean streak. So that's the beauty of this WBSS. Like, it's absolutely brilliant. And I suppose a point to be made from looking at it last night is like we get all this hype with Sky, DAZN, HBO, Showtime. How nice was it just to be able to throw on a stream last night and see good competitive fights?
Yes.
With no bullshit, no hype train, no fucking Sweet Caroline, no videos. It was just great. It was just great. Like, So we're going to see some really, really good fights. I'm rooting for Josh. I hope he goes ahead and wins it. But 2 tough fights, like you said, to get to the winner there. But really, really loving these Super Series, and I hope, next year we get 4 divisions. We had 2 divisions before, we have 3 this year. Go ahead and give us 4 next year. Like, more power to the Super Series.
Mm-hmm. Yep, get on board with that completely. Smido, Ben Thorns has thrown in a question for you. Who throws the worst right hand, Hughie Fury or
Dillian White? Dillian White. Dillian White. Definitely. I answered that before he was even given us an option. Dillian White.
There we go then. There you go, Ben.
I've said this many times before. I can throw a better right hand than Dillian White.
And we've seen you, Smid, on video.
Ozzy can vouch for it in real life.
Yeah, okay. Right, Wooly Skull has thrown in a question. I think we've pretty much answered it, so I'm not going to dwell on it for too long. He said, I think a big problem in boxing is the fact that the judges and referees are all so old. I suppose as a counterpoint for me, you have to have that level of experience, don't you? Anyway, back to Wooly Skull. He said if there were young men who aren't close to retirement age, maybe they'd take more pride in doing their job properly. He tagged in Ultratech Sports, New Age Boxing, a few other people, including ourselves. I think we've discussed the refereeing problem. I don't know. You get more experience as you get older. There is a point. They do pass a point, I suppose, whenever, when's too old. Look at Mickey Van. He's 70-odd, still doing a good job in Ireland, even up to last year. Fleet-footed, could get around the ring as well as any of them. So maybe physical fitness is an issue. Not sure, Wooly Skull, if the age problem is the main problem there. Don McNamara has thrown in a question. Ozzy, I'll go to you. Patreon question. This is from Don McNamara. We always ask the Patreon questions in the first week of every month. What is the worst fight you have ever seen, Ozzy? For me, says Dom, Lee Haskins versus Don Broadhurst. Now that was one hell of a stinker.
I was at that one live. That was at Birmingham, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, it was. That came on. That was the last fight on, right? And the stadium. That was the Magnificent Seven card, I think. And the stadium and the arena was emptying, and that fight continued while the lights were on. Seriously. Serious.
What do you think, Ozzy? Ruiz Holyfield, Tyson Fury, Kevin Johnson.
I think probably Matty asking Lawrence Okole's got to be up there from just a few weeks ago, really. That was absolutely dire. Again, Okole Chamberlain.
Bellew, cleverly rematch.
Yeah, that was bad.
Yeah, that was bad, yeah. I'm trying to think. I'm sure I've been at a couple where, just like shitty undercard ones that have just been horrendous.
Well, I've got one. The entire undercard to Taylor Postall, that was fucking awful. I mean, I swear to God, I could have went for a fucking 3-course meal and come back, and the fight still hadn't started. the delays in between fights was incredible.
I have a bad one for you. I mentioned it on the pod previously. The fight was so bad. I watched it with my dad when I was a kid. It was on Saturday night, or it might have been even Sunday night on ITV. And what's the name of Rosenthal, the host on ITV? Used to cover Jim Rosenthal. Apologise because for the quality of the fight because it was so bad. It was Lennox Lewis versus Dan Murphy. Dan Murphy was a fat, out of shape Irish American heavyweight brought over to take a dive, and Lennox just decided that he wasn't going to throw any punches that night, and it was absolutely horrendous. So you when you talk about what goes on today with everyone throwing the company line, Jim Rosenthal was apologising for the quality of the fight back in those days. That was a shocker.
Smido, I'm gonna come across get across you here. I thought that Lee Haskins Broadhurst might have been on a Sky Frank Maloney, now Kelly Maloney show, and according to Box Record, indeed it was 2009. It was Maloney Promotions in Newport Centre, Wales.
So Broadhurst must have been on a different fight then at that Magnificent Seven card. It was definitely Dom, definitely, because he's a Birmingham lad, isn't he?
Yeah.
Lee Selby was in a stinker at the when they did outdoor show in Hull. I forgot who that was against, but it was that Virial Simeon, possibly him. The
Romanian, he got iced a couple of weeks back ago in America.
By Shakur Stevenson.
That's who it was.
Yeah.
I once had to question my sanity and love for the sport when I set the alarm one weekend and got up at 3 a.m. or whatever it was to watch Bernard Hopkins against that Burnett Shumenov. That was shocking.
Wow.
That was one of the biggest mistakes I've ever made in boxing.
And the worst one I'm going to throw in, this is completely niche. I used to work nights, I've mentioned it before, and ESPN2 was showing a live card. It was Tuesday night, 24th of June, 2003, from the Buffalo HSBC Arena in New York. And it was Ross, the Boss Thompson, who once got knocked out by Fernando Vargas, against Sam Reese. This was the worst fight I have ever seen in my entire life. It was an 8-rounder or a 10-rounder. Ross the Boss won on points. The main event that night was a certain Joe Macy. You'll remember him, Andy. 25-0 heavyweight. Defeated Robert Davis. Had to retire in the end with a brain bleed and spent about 10 years fighting the decision, as you do when you have a brain bleed, so he could get back into the ring. He never made it. He won that night. Zahir Rakim, who once beat Eric Morales, was also on the undercard. Ross the Boss Thompson, Sam Reese, Tuesday night in 2003. The worst fight I have ever seen in my entire life.
I've got two others. I remember Kurt basically saying he was washed after staying up on a Friday night. I'm sure it was a Friday night to watch Ishii Smith against Cornelius.
No!
Oh no!
Oh, what? He see this Sunday morning when I spoke to him. He's like, I am never in my fucking life staying up to watch another fucking late night show unless it's a fight I really want to watch.
That is the winner.
That is the winner, right?
Fucking hell, that is bad.
And that was awful, that fight. I don't know if you remember this one, actually. It was on the undercard, the Pacquiao Bradley first fight. Mike Jones against Randall Bailey. It was so shite that I was just getting ready to switch it off until Randall Bailey uncaught.
Jones got iced, didn't he?
I think I watched that.
A counter right uppercut, man. Honest to Christ, it was a shit fight. But see the ending, it was one of the
Mike
best endings
Jones,
to a fight ever. Counter right uppercut by Randall Bailey, man. Just
the man with the most forgettable name in boxing was instantly forgotten after that one. That's right.
He had one more fight after that 2 years later and retired. Oh my!
That was literally the biggest piece of shit I have ever seen in my fucking life. I remember my dad was at my house watching this with me, and I told him, I said, "Hey, Pop, watch out for this baby guy. He's got the power. He's probably gonna knock this guy out." And the longer the fight goes on, the worse and worse my prediction looks. And I'm just praying for it to be over because it was terrible. And the old man, he falls asleep, I think in round 6. And then all of a sudden, next thing you know, the fight is over. And he wakes up and he's like, "What happened?" I said, "My guy won by knockout." He said, "I've never seen a guy win by knockout by putting another guy to sleep because the whole fight."
But the best thing about Gabe, the best thing about Mike Jones was, though, who was it he fought? And now I've mentioned this before, and I do apologise. When he absolutely emptied his tank in the first round, completely trying to put this guy away, and Soto Kras, and he could barely move for the next 9 rounds.
Yeah.
He was that knackered. That's pure comedy gold. That is. Anyway, sorry, Smido, go ahead.
Just to confirm, I'm not going mad. That Don Broadhurst fight I was referring to was against Najar Ali that he lost on, unanimous decision. We left before that happened. But talking of pay-per-view and so-called stacked cards, that Magnificent 7 card in September 2010 was on Box Office. Cleverly Murat was a good fight. Like that was phone box stuff.
Matchroom was on it, wasn't he? Sorry.
Yeah. Enzo got iced by Alexander Frankel, like badly iced. Doran Sexton was a decent enough fight. Kell Brook Michael Jennings was a decent fight at the time. Matthew Hall against Lucas Konechik. How do you say his name? Yeah, that was obviously an upset, but decent enough. Macklin fought someone half decent. I'm not even going to attempt
European title, wasn't it? I think.
Yeah.
Some of that card fell apart, I think. And I think Klitschko was also meant to be carrying that card as well. And
wasn't Cleverly supposed to be fighting Bremer for the first time?
Yeah.
Yes,
was that
yes,
card?
he was.
Yeah,
he was. But honestly, that was you could hear the shots from. I can remember vividly Cleverly and Murat really knocking each other with body and head hooks. That was decent. De Gale, when he used to do the old raise the right hand, look to the sky, that was on show after he knocked out Carl Dilks. And Frankie Gavin was on there also. But no, it was actually a decent fight. I enjoyed it. That was when I used to like boxing.
Well, there you are. He doesn't like boxing anymore, everybody. Right, let's move on briefly because we're starting to run out of time. Quick word, Andy, from you. Felix Verdejo against Cruz next week. It's all about Verdejo, isn't it? Is his time about to pass, if not already?
Yeah, I just noticed that this morning, actually. He was fighting next week on a one-fight card. I don't know who he's fighting. It must be some sort of tune-up fight.
11 losses on the opponent's record.
You would think with this guy, it's it's now or never with him. He needs to make a big push. It's just quickly reverse back as well to the Berchelt fight. Get it watched, people. But like you could tell by those punches that he was landing on Roman and that they were rocking him. You could see it would have the physical, visual effect on the guy. So I go and get it watched. But Verdejo, he had his chance. He got greedy. And then he's fucked it up. So it's a long road back for him. And I wouldn't be surprised if no sanction body actually puts him in position for a while yet.
Yeah, exactly. Aussie, Saturday the 10th of November, cruiserweight action. Not quite onto Usyk, Bellew yet, but we do have Maris Bradis against Noel Gavor. 23-1 Gavor, never seen him fight, indicating by his record he's probably half decent. Krzysztof Glowacki is going in against Maxim Vlasov as well. Also, I believe he's in that tournament. Any interest in these ones? Aussie, middle of the night, hopefully maybe get some kind of a stream.
Yeah, I'll try. I won't be staying up for him or anything. I'll try and catch him in the morning. This is part of the... Is that in Chicago, this one?
It is indeed.
Yeah, so it's part of the next round of the World Boxing Super Series, isn't it? I'll just pull up that card now.
I'm struggling with the cruiserweights, Aussie. I'll be completely honest with you. I'm looking at some of these fights and saying, is it the cruiserweight tournament? Is it not part of... I'm not actually sure.
I have heard of that Noel Gavor before, but I don't know if it was a Sauerland fight or something like that. But I mean...
He fought on the card. He fought on the card in Huck against Usyk. He fought Isaiah Thomas, I think his name was.
Yeah.
Basically outpointed him, but Thomas was struggling with the weight at that time. I literally saw Thomas outside the arena 2 hours before the weigh-in, running up and down the fucking track trying to make the weight. But bin bag already.
Jesus, that's bad. No way.
And it was
he fought Diablo. His loss was to Diablo, apparently, Vladocic.
Yes, it was. It was to Diablo. But I know I'd be gobsmacked if Bradis doesn't beat this guy. To be honest, it would be. I think that would be a real upset. I've got to admit, I don't think the cruiserweight one has as much shine on it as it did first time round. Obviously, Gassiev's not in it. Usyk's not in it. Probably, arguably, 1 and 2 in the division. So they've kind of filled it up with a couple of, fringe world level guys. Glowacki, he's in with Vlasov. That could be quite fun. That I quite like Glowacki. I think he's a solid all round fighter. Can clearly punch.
They're both going to stand, aren't they? Them two in trade, you would imagine.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, basically, yeah. So I think that could be fight of the night in terms of, particularly on that card. And then I see that Arto Man is on there, and I haven't seen much of him. I just see his name keep cropping up. I mean, he's 14-0. I've looked at he's not really fought anybody of note. I don't know.
Beat a local rival in his last fight.
Did he? I have no idea. Yeah, it's one of them. To be honest, I watched bits of it, but I couldn't take care about the rest of the card.
No problem, Gabe. Let's bring you in. Yuriorkis Gamboa is fighting in Florida next Saturday night against Miguel Beltran Jr. Juan Manuel Lopez is now up at, lightweight, fighting against Christian Mino. We've often said, is Felix Verdejo going to be the next Felix Trinidad? Is he going to be the next Juan Manuel Lopez? Well, we can rank Verdejo against Lopez next week, Gabe, because they'll be going up against each other, not obviously in the ring, but on rival networks. Tell me about Verdejo. Tell me about Lopez. Tell me anything you want, Gabe, basically. Tell me something I don't know.
I can't talk whenever that kind of shit's going on. Verdejo. I thought it was a good note for Andy to let Andy know that his favorite Puerto Rican fighter of all time, the one that was formerly trained by his uncle, the great Miguel Cotto, was actually training Verdejo for a little while. I'm not sure if he still is or not, but I thought that would be something interesting to let Andy know about. I'm sure he'll be thrilled to see old Uncle Cotto back in the corner. Verdejo and Lopez, man, I don't know. They kind of have different paths, so to speak. Juanma Lopez had a great career, was looking like the next big superstar, and then he gets starched out. And so everybody considered him to be chinny after that. And they all thought the same thing that when he fought somebody else that was a big, heavy-handed puncher, he was going to be in trouble. If you rewind back just a little bit, you watch the what was it, Rogers and Togwa fight for one ma,
Yes,
you could see. I mean, he got blasted and he was surviving. He was watching the clock the whole rest of the fight. I think it was a few rounds before the 12th, if I remember correctly. So that was a early sign that he might not be quite as stout in the chin, so to speak. But I don't know that Verdejo is the same way. I think the issues with Felix Verdejo have been different. He had some injuries, some of them to do with boxing. I think his hands were hurt a little bit here and there. And then he had more of an injury that was related to his pastime activities with the motorcycle accident. So he'd been out for a while and he came back and he tried to, it seemed like Top Rank brought him in right where he left off after seemed like what I recall as being a significant time away. So if you bring a guy back like that after he's had a lot of time off and try to bring him right back to where he was to start with, then you're kind of asking for a scenario like that, I think, a lot of times where Verdejo gets in, he was knocked out. When I watched that fight back, I really didn't think he was completely ready for it to be waved off. Again, I don't really remember it that well because it was kind of a blip on the radar, so to speak, whenever that fight went down. I think it was up in New York. But it would seem maybe at this point that people might have a similar idea that Verdejo is pretty chinny. So if it happens that he gets knocked out again, then I think you can kind of start having a little bit more discussion about that. But as for now, I'm going to hold off judgment on it because I don't think he's all that chinny. His defense has never been particularly what I would think is of as being sound. He's been able to be hit. He just never has gotten hit by a heavy-handed guy. And so when I'm looking at them, I compare the two. I think they're just on different levels. Juanma Lopez got brought in, improved his mettle in some tough fights, and then got his chin cracked, and he should still be an action fight. So whenever I'm looking at it, both fights should be entertaining for whatever value they provide, whether that's a knockout or a good solid scrap. And you may find out a little bit more about where each one of those guys stands at the end of the evening. Is Juanma still able to carry on? Should he still carry on? I think a lot of people would say no at this point. But that fight may tell us for sure whether he's absolutely done or not. And then you have Verdejo, who's in a position to possibly be lined up from this point forward as a failed prospect, gatekeeper type guy if he loses. So I think Top Rank really just got tired of jacking with the kid. And I would too. It's frustrating because he wasn't dedicated from all the things I've read online. Didn't care much about boxing, was more interested in being a man of the people like Tito Trinidad. So whenever I look at it, I mean, I think there's a lot to tell, and I think we'll find out a lot next week. And then with the Gamboa fight, I'm sure we're setting up Gamboa versus Lopez. So if that fight does happen, 20 years past his due date, that should be at least somewhat interesting.
With the IBO title on the line.
Is it really?
No, but you could imagine them getting involved in something like that to complete the circle.
Well, it really wouldn't surprise me too much. At least it's not the IBO Super title.
The IBO Continental title is now in circulation.
Oh, Jesus. We got to stop this nonsense.
Well, let's move on.
I think it should be. I think even if you're someone like me who was big on Juanma and big on Gamboa, then you probably still tune into this one. I think it's on pay-per-view here in the United States. I think it's going to be one of the cheaper ones. One of the
really?
25. It's an integrated sports pay-per-view from what I remember seeing last.
They should be paying you to watch that.
So I think it'll be around $25, so to speak, something like that. I probably won't be buying it unless I find no one else buying it because I would enjoy watching it, I suppose. So we'll see what happens. But it should be, if nothing else, a good memory lane evening watching some guys who probably shouldn't be fighting anymore, carrying on and possibly making an ass of themselves or making everybody believe they still might have a shot at something.
Trying to reclaim past glories, going on too long. Right, Artur Szpilka, novelty fight against Mariusz Wach in Poland next Saturday evening. Love the way the Poles bring their fighters back and not afraid to put them in against each other. Final Patreon question of the week, wrapping Rob Kelly. Let's go to you from Sam, our friend over at Against the Ropes Boxing. He said, if Floyd Mayweather keeps having these novelty fights, Rob, does it affect his legacy? We have had conversations in the past about Roy Jones, haven't we? On a similar level. If Floyd keeps having these novelty fights, Rob, against guys who, you know, for all intents and purposes, are not boxers and coming back fighting these bums, what have you, is his legacy going to be affected, Rob?
I think the thing about Floyd was whatever you say about him outside the ring, what he's done in the ring has been sensational. Like, he's definitely been one of the best to watch, even if you don't like the defensive style. His technical ability, his ability to avoid punches, and he had some mustard on the shots as well down the lower weights. Like, he was fantastic, especially at 135. And he beat a lot of good fighters. A lot of them passed their sell-by dates, as people say. But I don't think his legacy is in question. Same as I don't really think Roy Jones' legacy is in question. I always view fighters on as good as they were when they were at their best. You know what I mean? Best for best. And I think Roy Jones at his best was unbelievable. I think we spoke about it before. If he'd have retired after Ruiz, it would have been hard for anyone to make an argument against him being one of the greatest ever. So he did go on too long, but the knockout losses after the weight loss and everything don't tarnish it for me. I mean, it's sad. Like, it's terrible to watch. It was like, you don't dream of Roy Jones getting knocked out by Enzo Macronelli. So I think that kind of thing is more in line with tarnishing a legacy. Floyd, if he comes back and fights Khabib, I mean, really, who gives a shit? He's just proven that he's a master salesman and he can sell you anything. As much as Eddie thinks he's the master salesman, the real master salesman is Floyd, like, of the modern era. McGregor, all these guys tried to emulate him. Nobody can quite pull it off. I think McGregor's probably the closest in terms of racking up a fortune, being the bad guy. Like, but destroy his I wouldn't say so much destroy his legacy, but just make a mockery out of him more and more. And it's we spoke about it a lot on the pod. Like, from a guy who's accumulated so much money, his behavior at times, it's just shocking, like infantile, like that doesn't even describe it. So I think Mayweather has his own demons without souring his legacy. But inside the ring, I couldn't doubt him. Like,
yeah, I think Rob summed that up quite well. I would agree with most of that, if not all. Before we go on to the Bellew of the week, so we're going to talk about the big one, obviously, coming up next week. Alexander Usyk against Tony Bellew. All of the silverware on the line. I see Terry O'Connor's name is mentioned as Aussie. Said, no, I'm not going to spend too much time on the undercard because we haven't really got that much time left anyway. So let's just forget about the undercard. Smido, Usyk, Bellew. There's no way that Bellew can possibly win this fight. Some people are saying. I say don't write off the bomber. What do you say, Smid?
Steve, Usyk could win this fight if they stipulated that he could only punch with one arm. Like, we've all doubted Bellew, and I know he's upset the odds against Hay and that, but I actually backed him to get against Hay. I still badly dislike Bellew. He went through a stage of I remember he made an appearance on another podcast a couple of years ago, and since then he seems to have become accepted amongst some of the so-called hardcore since then. No, fuck that. He's a prick. As Porky will tell us, my mate Porky will tell us, Bellew, everything he's won has been vacant. He's won vacant British, Commonwealth, European. His world title was vacant against Makabu, and Makabu's done shit all since. He had a defence against Flores that was shocking. I'd have put up a better fight, and he's fight David Hay twice, who's basically a cripple. So, when was the last time Bellew was in with a live body? I mean, probably was Makabu, but obviously, his form's not worked out. But before that, his best win is probably Chilemba. I just think it's been so long since he's fought a live body. He's coming back down to cruiser, which is going to be a bit different. It's been at least 15, 16 months since he's made cruiser, if not more. I just think that Usyk's going to knock him out. I don't think it's going to be a one-punch splatter job, but I think he's going to absolutely pepper him with anything he wants, from any range he wants. And I think that he's going to bust Bellew up, and it'll either be a pull-out job by the corner, or he'll quit. That I just cannot see a way how Bellew can win this fight. I really can't. I think that Usyk has proven somewhat his chin before. So this stuff about Bellew being a massive puncher, even if that is true, I still don't think it will be enough to beat Usyk. I think Usyk's been on the road. He's encountered different atmospheres, different styles. He obviously bossed the tournament. He'd fought Gassiev into some. Gassiev basically gave up Canelo against Floyd style. I just don't see a way how Tony Bellew can win this fight at all.
When you say quit, you mean like a sort of
Mentally,
try and make it look acceptable? Quick quit.
Yeah. I think that's what Gassiev did. And I don't necessarily think Bellew will do that. I don't think he'll get to that stage. I just think he's going to get busted up and will get beat down. I don't think it'll be a sense of him Bellew trying to cruise to a points loss. I don't think really there's much in that for Bellew, even if that did happen. I just cannot see him winning at all, Steve. That's my assessment.
Okay. Bellew, Rob, has obviously been mixing up at heavyweight against a heavyweight with not great mobility, it must be said. Does this say anything, the performance possibly about Usyk's future beyond this fight, up at heavyweight as we expect?
Yeah, I suppose so. I think, look, this fight in many ways wouldn't have been made if Eddie hadn't gone co-promotional route with Usyk. Like, I think they wouldn't have been looking for any smoke with Usyk if he hadn't got an option to build him as a star. Eddie obviously knows, like Andy said, he's the only undisputed champion up around those weights. He's come through the Super 6 series at a canter, really, like against some really good guys. He hasn't maybe knocked out the guys at the top level that he's fought, but that's like a minor criticism of him because he does everything good, brilliant amateur. And I think he'll just have too much for Tony Bellew, just too much heat for him, just put too much pressure on him, box the way he wants to box. I'd be more likely to say it's a kind of a YGD, and knowing the judging, it'll probably be a split decision. And I don't want to. I'm not criticizing Tony Bellew. I wouldn't. If I was him, I probably wouldn't have taken this fight. Like, I think he deserves credit for taking this fight as much as we slayed him, and me personally as much as I slayed him as well. Like, he's an all right character really, apart from the shenanigans he goes on with. Just in terms of promoting the fight and his general demeanor or whatever, like the way he carries himself, like he can come across like a bit of a shit on social media. Like, but it's a big. You got to give him credit for taking this fight. Like, even though he ducked the Super Series, so. He'll have a goal. Like, he'll try and punch. He's not gonna go and lie down. I don't think. I think he will try and trade. I don't know, from a game plan. Like, I don't think Tony's good enough to box Usyk on the outside. Like, so I think he'll want to make a mix early-ish. I'd say to be tentative enough for a couple of rounds and then try and make a mix it. But I just see Usyk being in control all the way, keeping him on the jab, busting him up, breaking him down, working the body, and I just think Bellew maybe's had one or two good paydays recently, like, and as well as that, they've announced, haven't they, that this is his last fight. Like, this is the farewell, so the money's in the bank. You know what I mean? He's going to get paid regardless. Like, and he's got paid really well for the last two fights as well. He's won his world title. He's had his Goodison Park moment. I mean, how much better does it get for Tony Bellew? He's beaten David Haye twice. A shell of a David Haye, and we have to be honest about that. A shell of a David Haye. The only reason that fight sold was because the two of them could talk. And I said it before, Bellew said Haye was caught in the British public. Yeah, he was, but he wanted in on it. He wanted to caught the British public as well and get those two fights made. That fight was like nobody in their right mind wanted to see Tony Bellew versus David Haye in 2017 and 2018 or whatever it was. Like, so, They did a good job hyping it. They sold it to the British public like Haye was still this puncher and he was in the best shape he's ever been in, and then Tony's upset all the odds and there was doubt over the first one because Haye pulled out with an injury and this that. Just shite like that we had to listen to. So I just I think this is his farewell, and I think it's going to be the dawn of a new era, like with Usyk becoming a bit of a breakout star in front of a big audience. Like,
I'm thinking of the stylistic matchup. Ozzy, obviously, Usyk is a southpaw, very high work rate. He'll just be constantly moving, won't he? Jab, move, jab, move. You can see Bellew looking very static, getting beaten up to the face. Adonis Stevenson was a southpaw as well, not in the same ilk as Usyk. Obviously, it was the speed and power and quickness to the target. That was Stevenson's thing. Makabu, I believe, I'm right in saying, was a southpaw as well, but nowhere near of Usyk's ilk. I don't really know what point I'm making, Ozzy, if indeed there is a point here at all, but stylistically speaking, Usyk is just going to be all about activity and accuracy, isn't it?
He is, yeah. And to be honest, I don't think the fight will be that great. I purely for the fact I don't think Bellew will be able to really land much on him on Usyk. I think he'll be too quick on his feet. I think he will box move, and just basically make him an absolute and dominate the fight from bell 1 to bell 12. I don't think he'll stop Bellew. I think for all that people can give him stick for, Bellew can take a shot. I think we've only really seen him really hurt by Adonis Stevenson. Yes, he's susceptible to being on the deck. Oval McKenzie has dropped him. McCurbu dropped him as well. But again, he wasn't really hurt by those. He was just put on his backside, but he was straight back up. For this fight, in my opinion, I just don't. I just think it's just going to be a one-sided fight, a win for Usyk. It's an excellent opportunity to go and, in British boxing terms, Bellew's a name now, and a big name. So he will beat Bellew in front of a big crowd on a big platform, and he will make his way up to heavyweight, and it just hypes the heavyweight fights moving forward. We know Usyk's signed with DAZN now, so we know what the Hearn routes, what he's going to want. It's going to be fight Derek Chisora, then Dillian White, then we'll try and tee up the Anthony Joshua fight. That's the 3-fight rule for any heavyweights coming to Matchroom at the moment. But maybe even stick Dave Allen in there as well. He usually worms his way in. but no, I think the fight itself, I think Usyk will win comfortably. The only way Bellew wins is if Usyk does a Ryan Burnett and his back goes. I cannot see how Tony Bellew beats this guy. Usyk has passed every test with flying colours. He dominated the number 2 cruiserweight in the world in his own backyard. And it wasn't just to dominate, it was an absolute canter for him. Bradis gave him a good fight. That's probably Usyk's toughest fight of his career. He bullied Marco Huck. He beat Hunter. He's a road warrior. I think when was the last time he boxed actually in his hometown? About 3 years ago now. No atmosphere is going to faze him. He's coming to win. He fancies it. And I think his eye, ultimately, is going to be on Anthony Joshua in the next 12 months.
Yeah, I'm hoping, Andy, that he puts the pressure on at the end. Once he beats Bellew in his limited English, Usyk's limited English, not Bellew's, he comes on the microphone and says, "Look, Eddie, come over here. I want to fight Anthony Joshua. Let's get Eddie sweating in that suit."
Yeah, that is the main reason why they signed with Eddie Hearn. I don't think the fight happens straight away. I think if it's going to happen, it's going to be 2020. Simple fact is, I know it's a 5 or a 6 fight deal. I think Usyk's got, so there's no way Hearn's going to throw him in with Joshua and he's like second, third fight deal with
2020, Andy, we could be dead by then.
I know, but you know how Eddie likes to play it cautious, likes to play the margins, he likes to kind of make the profit and that. It's not about kind of making the big fights and stuff like that. It's all about making the profit. That's what the accountants are about. But and they're good at spending people's money. But that being the case, I still think I was going to add what Rob stated as well, as that was a telling point about Bellew's wife. Actually, if you actually listen to the presser, his wife's been at him constantly to retire. When Eddie Hearn phoned him, she apparently says, "Don't fucking answer that phone call" or something like that. So the pressure's on him now at some point. Personally, I think he's really getting the pressure to chuck it. He doesn't need to fight anymore, I don't think. Has he got a chance? As I say, anybody's got a chance. Especially up at the higher weights. If you've got a bit of dig about you in that, then you can turn it around. But I have never seen Usyk rocked, stumbled, or anything like that. So I just think, considering the guy's experience levels, I mean, Christ almighty. I mean, so I'm talking about. I guess we'll come to Joy Nelson and stuff like that. But this guy, he has had under 350 amateur fights. Right? He's seen them all. He's fought Badu Jack. He's fought Matty Korobov numerous times. Okay, also Sean Porter and that. Beterbiev. Guys like that ilk. Clemente Russo, long-standing heavyweight. Big Stevie Simmons, for example. There's a guy, the big French cruiserweight who's picked up a WBA interim title. Arjan Goulamarian. He also beat Pulev's brother.
Oh, has he got a title now, right? Okay.
He beat Joe Joyce, for example. You know, people rave about Joe Joyce. He beat Majidov of Azerbaijan. So he's seen and done it all. And then to top it off, just to kind of say, look, guys, I ain't no bum, right? He goes to Poland, beats the champion in Gołacki. He goes to America for a defence and defeats Machuno. Then goes and fights Michael Hunter in America. Then fights Marco Huck in Berlin. Fights Bridas after that in Riga, and then fights Gaziev in Moscow. And we're going to believe Johnny Nelson's telling us that, I don't think he's technical. You do not go to those countries by if you've not got technical ability and win all those fucking fights unless you can't fight.
And not only that, Gołacki undefeated at the time, Bridas undefeated at the time, Gaziev undefeated at the time.
And Hunter might have been undefeated at the time as well.
Hunter undefeated at the time as well, yeah. So
I am feel, baby. I agree because I think Usyk will be dominant. It might take him a couple of rounds just to kind of like be wary and cautious and stuff. But I'm just gonna feel Bellew out. But I think in the end, unless he gets a kind of late stoppage, the guy's massive for the weight, and we all know Bellew doesn't kind of look in the greatest of shapes and that. Is he going to cut the 10 pounds nice and easy this time? Who knows? But I think it might show up actually. The fact is, again, I'm not trying to be kind of like critical of Bellew and that, but his last two fights were like, as everybody knows, were pension fights. BJ Flores, you can't tell me that was like a decent, worthwhile challenger for your WBC title. We all know he was an absolute mandatory challenger. No mandatory challenger. It was a voluntary challenger, wasn't he? So it was a voluntary defence. So Bellew's not really kind of. I don't want to say he's been in a proper fight, but he hasn't really been in kind of like peak opponents since probably 2016, since he fought Makabu. And he's fighting like one of the best pound for pound fighters on the planet at the minute. As I say, Flores isn't great. He was basically crippled going into that first fight. Everybody knows that. And then in the second fight, it was just clear that he had nothing left, and Bellew just kind of took what was ever left him. So if we go look at that, form guide going in is some sort of barometer that he's going to beat Usyk with after what we've seen Usyk do over the last 3, 4, 5 years, and just take into account his amateur record. And these tossers are telling us on Twitter that he's not got a chance.
Andy, on that point then, and this might sound like a really stupid thing to say, but I'm going to say it anyway. Do you think that the beginning of the fight, so the first 6 rounds or so, might actually resemble stylistically a little bit like Taylor Martin last night?
Possibly. I think it'll be telling if Usyk can land something heavy early doors. If he doesn't, I think Bellew might get a wee bit brave and might just decide to stand in it. Because at the end of the day, if you look at Usyk, if he's in quarters and stuff like that, if he's in close with it, he's going to throw punches at you from all the angles. He's going to throw you hooks, and he's going to throw you uppercuts to the up the middle. And
Tony's got to let his hands go. He's got to let his hands go.
He's going to have to at one point. I think at one point. We all know Tony's mad and stuff like that, but I expect him to have a go at this. He fucking probably will have a go, but he's going to want to feel what Usyk's got first before he does it. I think before he commits, and then we'll take it from there. But as I say, I will be absolutely fucking gobsmacked if Tony pulls this off. I swear to God. I mean, can you imagine? Well, it's just like the biggest turnaround ever, man. It'll be like the joke's on us, so we'll probably
outboxes him. Johnny Nelson will be like wankers.
Johnny Nelson will be taking clips from this podcast and playing them back to him.
Yeah, live on Sky with a box inside and T-shirt on him.
What we've got to remember, right? They can say this, but Bellew, prior to Hay doing his Achilles, was getting beat off David Hay, a corpse of David Hay who could barely. He sneezed and he'd pull a muscle. And he was only 3 points up, and that was after trying to land everything on him. So how the hell is he going to outbox Alexander Usyk? He's not. This is this narrative that we were talking about before of that they want to build the fight into something that it isn't, and they will just say outrageous statements because people will lap it up because they're not educated and they don't follow the sport as much as other people do. So they'll read something which is on a Sky Sports website, a more than reputable website. After all, it's Sky, a worldwide company. They'll read it and think, oh, yeah, this is true. Tony Bellew, he can beat anybody. He's going to outbox this guy. He's going to win. When in reality, it couldn't be any further from the truth. So it's absolute bollocks.
What's the money like for this? Is there any money on Bellew?
Where's the value to be found, Ozzy?
Normally when they spike it with the public, with Sky and all that. Like, it has some kind of effect on the money because people bet. Like, there's guys I know that don't watch boxing and they're like, "Oh, I love a bit of the Bomber. Like, can't wait for the Bombers fight." I'm like, "What?"
The bomber.
Bellew is around 4-1, and Usyk to win. This is just to win, and Usyk to win is best priced around 1-6.
Right. So not much.
Even money the KO.
Yeah. So not
What does
really
that
much
mean,
effect.
Smitho, for a casual? Sorry, Rob. What does that mean, Smitho, for a casual like me? What are you putting your money on in this fight? If you had money, if you had a tenner, what would you put it on?
I'll be on tenner on Usyk KO, and you'll get a return of 20. Thank you very much.
Oh no! I tell you what, I'd take an Usyk decision. Me at just under 2-1. Like I said, Bellew's got a chin. To be fair.
Yeah, I could see that. I could see a unanimous decision. Like, therefore.
And if you put a tenner on that Aussie, what do you get back?
So it's 19-10, so you get £19 profit, then plus your £10 stake as well.
Okay. Right, anything else, gentlemen, briefly, before we move on to the Bellew of the Weeks? Nope.
Do we even need to do Bellew of the Week? I think we've got a winner, haven't we?
Yes, we have indeed. I'm going to rush through them very quickly, though, all the same for everyone who's throwing them in. Boxing Boy, first of all, threw one in for Danny Priestley for talking about Pulev. Who is he going to fight next? He said he should fight White Chisora, guys that he's already beaten. I've just flicked right to the end of the Bellew of the Weeks on my phone, which is a mistake.
Nelson, congratulations.
Johnny Nelson, congratulations. You know what I done, Andy and L, for me, actually? I was messing with my phone earlier today, and I thought that the screen looked a bit wonky, so I pushed it in. What happened? Spider's web right across the screen. Crack, crack, crack. That's the end of me. Gonna have to get a new screen, I think, for this phone. They're not cheap, are they? Either these things. So there you go. Just thought I'd let you know that, everybody. Right, I've stalled for long enough to get the questions back up. Bellew of the Weeks, even. Greg Cross has nominated Frederick Hawthorne. Epic fail, says Frederick to Eddie for the Prograve Flanagan card, even though Eddie didn't even promote it. Joe Thackeray has nominated Ashley Theophane. Join me on Deliveroo, says Ashley Theophane, and get £4 worth of free food from your favourite restaurant delivered to your door, assuming, judging by the way Theophane's career is, by him with one of those boxes on his back. James Bairstow has nominated Steve Wand for Anthony Fowler is my new favourite fighter. He says you fight a bit like Carl Froch. Boxing on BT Sport. Which two boxers would you like to see at a catch weight, says BT Sport. Derek Rogerson jumps in and says Anthony Fowler versus Chris Eubank. Yeah, out of all the fighters in the world, that's the two that he would like to see. Let's flick through them quickly, shall we? What else have we got? Turbo Tommy has nominated Blue Nose Smith, talking about Tony Bellew. Boxing Kingdom are going to sue the parody Boxing Kingdom. They're taking legal action. Are you Frank in disguise, says Box Royalty. Samuel Howarth has also been nominated. One from you, Andy, for Johnny Bag. Oh, yeah, here we go. Johnny Nelson says, Alexander Usyk might not have the confidence to match his ability. The Ukrainian who went to Russia and took a Russian favourite's belt, then shouted, I'm the daddy in front of a crowd of pissed off Russians. Get in the bin, Johnny Nelson. That's not the actual one we're talking about, but that is a different nomination. It's a good one.
But I actually added the actual quote for Johnny Nelson in there. It says that's the only guy of whom I think AJ needs to keep an eye on this kid here, because he's not even near the finished article yet and he can fight. It's probably the best time for Tony Bellew to fight him because he might not have the confidence that matches his ability and is still up there anyway. My fucking God. I mean, look, he just said in one breath that he's got one eye on Joshua, and then he says, oh, but at the end of the day, Bellew's fucking going to beat him. I mean, come on.
Dascon has nominated Knockout Power. Knockout Power says, stop moaning about pay-per-views. You should never judge a pay-per-view if it's pay-per-view worthy until after the show. Says Knockout Power. White versus Parker might not have been one, but afterwards it was. So there you go. You pay your money, Andy, and then get a refund afterwards if you're not happy with it. Yeah, right.
Yeah, I'd be on the phone there fucking making complaints like it.
Andy has thrown in another one from Jake Anderton. Talking about Eddie Hearn. Yeah, I'm just going to skip that one, to be honest with you. Here we go. The floodgates have opened. Sean Miller. This will be one of a million nominations, says Sean. Johnny Ballbag Nelson, Bellew of the Year, for saying Bellew is technically better than Usyk. Editing King as well threw it in. So did many other people. There you go. Bellew is technically better than Usyk, says Johnny Nelson. Huge front runner. Our friend Sam has thrown in Khan, Amir Khan, in his IFL interview saying Khan needs to stop chasing Pacquiao. The irony, Brook has done nothing but chase Khan his whole career. That was Eddie Hearn, in an interview, actually. Khan needs to stop chasing Pacquiao, where Brook has done nothing but chase Khan his whole career. Spencer Oliver has been nominated by Tottenham and Boxing Talk. for going to Disneyland. Andrew G has nominated Joshua. Joshua was praising Eddie Hearn. Brilliant insight into the economics of live boxing. Thank you for your transparency as ever, Eddie. It brings the fans so much closer to the sport. Dan has been nominated by Dazcon as well. Sam Dorset has nominated Daz Kent. Daz Kent was saying that Callum Smith has a triple A plus game and will knock out Triple G with relative ease. Bingo Pajama has nominated Eddie Transparent Hearn, who this week claimed that Chisora versus White is one of the best heavyweight fights some of us have ever seen. Eddie must have slept through the 90s, says Pajama. Mike Roberts has been nominated by Sam as well. Talking to Audley Harrison, Mike Roberts said, why don't you box again? You could still become a world champion, definitely. Calls for Audley Harrison against Fraser Crendo, maybe. I wouldn't mind seeing that one. Andy has nominated CT McQueen, Andy. I'm saying White is a harder fight than Wilder for Anthony Joshua.
Oh, dearie me.
There you go. Jay Roach has also nominated CT McQueen. Talking about rematches and legacies. Some of the greatest fights were built on rematches. Ali versus Frazier. Tyson versus Lewis. Remember those great rematches? No, says Jay Roach. Tyson versus Lewis. What a trilogy that was. There was only one of them. Bellew of the week. For CT McQueen. Indeed. Stephen Brenner. I'll get stick for this, he says, but surely Burns versus Cardle is too good of a fight to be on an undercard slot. Boxing Boy has nominated him for that. Andrew McCormick has nominated Eddie Hearn, claiming Chisora versus White as one of the best fights ever. Master Knowledge wouldn't be a week without him involved. Iron Fist Champion has nominated him. At Ryan Burnett, says Master Knowledge, was boxing brilliantly last night. Loved his variations of shots. The fight was warming up, but this could be, as I believe, an amazing blessing in disguise for this super talent. Hashtag he shall return. Nominated for my Iron Fist. Paco has nominated me. Fair cop on me. Got caught out on Saturday night badly. I tweeted out before the Ryan Martin Josh Taylor fight that I didn't fancy Ryan Martin to win the fight, but I thought he would be a live dog. I made a spelling mistake, was going to delete my tweet, so now I'll just leave it up there. And then after round 4, I admit, I saw the tweet sitting there. No one had replied. Spelling mistake was still there. I thought, you know what, I think I might just get rid of that. And Paco was too quick for me. They're always watching. Screenshotted it within that 10 minutes. And for you, mate, making an awful prediction and then deleting it, you know what? Fair cop. I don't usually delete things because I get things wrong all the time, and I'm happy to be nominated for Bellew of the Week off the back of that deletion incident. Mauricio Suleiman has been nominated for calling Nonito Donaire a legendary champion and then saying the diamond belt was on the line, by the way, last night. The WBC diamond belt was for the Burnett fight. Michael McElway has nominated Keeping It Real, Neil. He says that Josh Taylor hasn't done enough in these 14 fights. He needs to go and sign with Matchroom. Cyclone ain't climbing the ladder quick enough. Yeah, all right, Neil. Keep it real. That's the final one that I've got. Need I even open it up?
Nah, you've got all my ones, mate, but I just want to be the first to vote. Johnny Bag Nelson.
Johnny Bag Nelson.
I've got one from Floyd again. He put up a video of Oscar De La Hoya on his Instagram and said, "This alcoholic / crackhead is bad for boxing." And then Terry Norris has some things to say about the child support and visitation in America. He said he's paid for his daughter Camille's gymnastics for the last 6 years, and he hasn't been invited to one event. So they need to child support and visitation reform, according to Terrible Terry.
There you go. If Terrible Terry says it, he's been in a bad way, Terry, hasn't he? I think lately, actually, isn't he got some kind of CTE or something?
Oh, he's definitely fucked. Like yeah,
he's not well at all. I don't think.
I feel bad for saying it now.
No, I wasn't meaning to make you feel bad. I was reading an article of him a couple of days ago, and it just, I think he's getting cared for from his wife. Not that I want to put the boot in.
But he's been out 3 tweets, so he says, "How come women don't go to jail for ignoring court order visitations with your kid? Let me ignore the court order support payment, see what happens." I've also paid half of my daughter Camille's gymnastics for many years. Haven't been invited once. We need child support and visitation reform.
Tough times then. Tough times.
You shouldn't get your dick wet then, should you?
Fuck's sake. Right. Any others, or should we just go for Johnny and get the hell out of here?
Johnny Bag.
It's got to be Johnny, like, has the minute we seen it, we knew, like.
Yeah. Ozzy, as soon as you saw it, you knew straight away?
Yeah, Johnny is a deserved winner.
Imagine, Ozzy, if Bellew wins, I can imagine Johnny coming on IFL next week, bringing out his iPhone, there's a guy, Ozzy Smith here, and I'm just going to play this for you, Coogan. And then he presses play on his iPhone, and you laying into him play that. That would be funny, wouldn't it?
Yeah, but the thing is, though, I'm safe as houses because it's not fucking happening.
Yeah, we thought that with David Hay at one point as well.
Yeah, but at least, I mean, to be fair, Hayes an absolute corpse. So at least we knew that, whereas Usyk's clearly not. I mean, one thing that people keep saying, though, is people keep going, oh, this kid's not ready. He's 31, Usyk.
Yeah, I know.
He doesn't lack experience or anything. He's 31. He's got all his man strength. This is a fully fledged fighter in his prime. This is not some but a 14-0 novice. This is a legit fighter.
You got nothing to fear, Ozzy, with the ban. I don't think anybody's listening to us these days anyway, so we should be all right. Right, thanks to everybody who's been on the panel. We shall end it there. Congratulations, Johnny Nelson. Rob Kelly has been on with us. Also, Ozzy Smith, Andy Patterson as well as usual. Thanks to Gabe. Thanks to Smido. Hopefully we'll have a few more of the boys on next week when we shall review the Alexander Usyk, a glorious win over Tony Bellew, who knows, plus everything else that's coming up the following week. I've been Steve Wellings. Thank you for listening. As always, stay strong, everybody. We shall return live. Speak to you soon. Bye.